I'm going to start recording.
Okie dokie then. Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. We're gonna jump right in. Just a quick few reminders before we jump into the full meeting. Panelists, please remember to keep your camera on unless you absolutely need to turn it off during the meeting. It's important to show that we are present. That's particularly important whenever we take a vote, to make sure your camera is on so we can see who is casting that vote for the public record. Genuinely, we just want to keep it on so we are showing our presence and our attention for the work we're doing here tonight. Also, as a reminder, for panelists, if you have something to say to the group, make sure that you say it out loud on video, not in the chat, so we can keep that in front of the public as well. If you do have something to bring up one-on-one on the side, that's fine to keep in the chat, but also keep in mind OML law and everything in accordance as well. So we want to keep these conversations open and transparent. Members of the public, we will not be watching the chat for your feedback. If you do have any questions, you can drop those into the Q&A section of this meeting at the bottom of the screen, and Corey will be keeping an eye on those questions throughout the meeting. But then, of course, at the end of tonight's meeting, we will also have public comment. So we will get to that as well. Boom, boom, boom. Cool beans. All right, in that case, we're going to begin tonight's meeting with a reading of our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Arapaho, Ute, and Cheyenne tribes, the traditional custodians of the land on which the Police Oversight Panel and the Boulder Police Department operate, and we pay our respects to their elders, past and present. Members of the public, thank you for being here tonight and making the time. Also, any members of the media, any journalists, we also just want to express our appreciation for having you here. You're an important process of this work, oversight in our community, and we do really appreciate all the work you're doing for us. I also want to welcome panel members into the space, recognizing your volunteering to be here, to bring your time, your attention, and your integrity to this work. And so I want to thank you for that. And I'd also like to direct members of the public, if you have a complaint to submit against a member of the Boulder Police Department, you can do so at our website, bouldercolorado.gov/services/police-oversight. You can also contact the panel generally through our email, policeoversightpanel@bouldercolorado.gov, with any other queries. I will now read through our agenda for this evening. So we will begin with, with approval of the April 12th general panel meeting minutes. Then we're going to recap our last panel training on April 22nd, the history of civilian oversight and principles of accountability. Then we're going to recap and talk about our quarterly meetings with the chief herald and the other police department leadership. Our last one was April 26th. Our next one will be June 28th. Then we have a quick update regarding Hadassah's residency. Then we're going to get a status report on hiring a new independent monitor. Then we will get an update from our consultant, Farah, on our police oversight panel ordinance and the work on revising it. Then we will get our report from the independent monitor. And then we will have our discussion this evening about how we continue the Boulder Police Oversight Panel's operations. And then after that, we have scheduled, we need to selection of the alternates to fill our new panel vacancy. We will have our discussion of our case reviews. And then we have a discussion scheduled, of public case review, training, and demonstration for the public and the panel. We'll do our committee reports from the Community Engagement and Communications Committee, the Governance Committee, and the Legacy Committee. And then we will select cases for review, and then we will open the evening for public comment. So jumping right into approval of the meeting minutes for April 12th, does anyone have any revisions they need made to those minutes before we approve them? If not, can I get a motion to approve the April 12th meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Hadassah. All in favor to approve the minutes, hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a majority. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. So next up, we just want to touch briefly on our last training. So that was on April 22nd. And for members of the public, Farah, our consultant on police oversight, presented a history of civilian oversight for the panel. And then the OIR group, Michael, gave us a presentation on principles of accountability in police oversight. And so I will just open the floor now, panelists, if you have any comments, feedback, notes for the public based on those trainings that we had on April 22nd. Great. Oh, that's easy then. We will also, oh, never mind. Sorry, that's next. So then we also, since our last meeting, had our quarterly meeting. Chief Harold could not be at our last quarterly meeting, but Deputy Chief Stephen Redfern was there on April 26th. Sorry. For members of the public, our next meeting with the leadership of the police department is on June 28th. Those meetings are open to the public. We don't have public comment at those meetings, but they are open to the public to observe. And so we'd invite you to join us online for our next meeting on June 28th. But I also wanted to hold space here for a minute if anyone had any additional comments from our April 26th meeting or questions or any notes for the public. In that case, moving right along, I will hand it over to Hadassah for an update on your residency.
Thank you, Daniel. And I apologize in advance. I am having technical difficulties this evening, so that's I'm a little scattered. But pretty much, I just wanted to update the panel and community as well. That so I'm no longer living in Boulder, the city of Boulder. I have a home in Longmont. And as of this week, I'm no longer working in Boulder as either. I've moved to a job in Loveland. Obviously, I still have friends and family and everything in Boulder. But just to be, transparent that my residency is no longer there, and just to kind of give people an option to comment. And if the decision is like, no, you don't have enough Boulder, then that's okay. I'm with whatever the panel would like to decide, but just wanted to kind of inform people in the community. So anything anyone would like to say, go ahead.
So Hadassah, what do the ordinances say regarding panel members and residency, where they reside?
Yeah, so we have had panelists before that have transitioned out of the city of Boulder while they were working on the panel. And pretty much it just says there needs to be a connection to Boulder. And so that's kind of the language is just have a connection. And, being that my husband was born and raised in Boulder, his family is still there. And obviously I'm here to support y'all if that's what you would like me to do. Sorry, did that answer your question, Chico?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect.
In short, the ordinances are quite vague, so it is what it is, right?
Sam?
Yeah, I just to add to that, I pulled up the ordinance and it says that we're volunteers who have strong ties to the city of Boulder. This may include, but is not limited to, residency, employment in the city, or having children enrolled in schools located in the city. So it's not limited to those things, and it's subjective, right? And in my opinion, Hadassah definitely has strong ties to the city of Boulder. I don't see any problem.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, same. I'm keeping quiet, but I agree 100%, Sam. You know, having worked with Hadassah, and Hadassah has so many stakes in this work as well. I agree that Hadassah meets those boundaries of strong ties. We don't necessarily, there isn't necessarily a trigger in the ordinance either for an eventuality where someone loses their strong ties in that case as well. And so it is also kind of a uncharted territory as well as yeah, as your ties grow tenuous, at what point the panel could move to remove a panelist, affirm a panelist. But I fully support Hadassah's ties to Boulder and hope you stick around on the panel. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm of course, oh, yep, I'm of course here if you guys need me, so.
Milan, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to agree with what you and Sam, you, Daniel, and Sam have said. Just want to voice my appreciation for Hadassah and everything she's done on this panel. Definitely has her place here. Thank you.
Thanks, Milan. Any other thoughts, panelists? And so in this kind of case too, if you have thoughts you'd like to share with me as the other co-chair, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's why we have two co-chairs on this panel, is to be able to, to be able to check each other's powers and balances of opinion. So if you do have anything you'd like to pick up a phone and call me about, feel free, panelists. We want to keep this as an open discussion. But without further conversation, we'll keep Hadassah on as long as she'll keep us. Cool beans. Next up is our status report for hiring a new independent monitor. Without Amy here, looking at city staff, who's giving that update for us tonight?
I'm happy to, Daniel, unless Aaron, I didn't know if you were stepping in there.
I don't know much about
I
where
can just, oh, sorry, someone was saying something.
Oh, Farah.
Oh, I thought someone else was speaking. The update is it's posted, yay. I've seen it around. I've actually been emailed it several times, which I find very funny. The posting ends May 30th, I believe. And so we still have a few more weeks. Amy has asked me to send it out. It's on the NACOL. It's been sent out to NACOL. I sent it to my law school. It's being sent out to local, your local law schools, University of Denver, and I believe CU has a law school. So it's being sent there too. And so I encourage you all to send it out as well to your networks. I know the OIR group has posted it as well on their social media. And so we just, continue to push it out and get it out there. And then the process, obviously after the 30th, we'll start the formal process. And I imagine it'll be very similar to what you guys experienced before, maybe a couple tweaks. But we'll definitely have more detail after the posting closes on May 30th.
Thanks, Farah. Panelists, any questions related to independent monitor? I do encourage you, if you haven't already, this is an opportunity to share this out if you're comfortable through your social networks, through social media, to raise up the opportunity of this position in our communities, and spread it as far as we can to see who we can bring in. Without any additional questions, Farah, I'll give it right back to you for the ordinance update.
Thank you, Danielle. Good evening, everybody. Farah Muscadin, consultant working on the ordinance revision. I'm really excited about putting a work group together to start working on it and putting some ideas together. I have done some research on ordinances of similar review boards OIR group recommended I look at BART, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit System out in San Francisco, Oakland area. They have their own similar type of well, it's a hybrid. They have a monitor and a review board. So I did some digging, spoke to their director, looked at their ordinance. I looked at, I know you guys are modeled off of Eugene, Oregon's ordinance. I looked at them. I looked at Albany, has a review board that's going through some changes. I believe San Diego. I looked at Denver as well, but their review board is a little bit different. And so I'm happy to share some high level thoughts that I got from there, particularly with the feedback that I got from the community conversations I had. So particularly the relationship between the monitor and the panel. I've seen sections about that. I've seen sections in language about outside counsel. I've seen there's definitely different types of language to get at the objectivity and impartiality that you are looking for in panelists. So we can definitely delve into that and talk about how different cities have framed that in their ordinances. And so I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I just want to go over it quickly again, is that we're hoping to have this smaller work group to really be, rolling up our sleeves, looking at the panel section of the ordinance, pretty much line by line, and doing a community feedback session in person, hopefully, projected in June. And then some briefings, potentially a study session and or a separate briefing with council at the end of the summer. And then we would like, if I remember the procedure correctly, first reading at council to be in September, and then second reading, I believe that's the first week of October. So as I've told everybody, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record, is I am a pro at doing timelines, but I have no control over the timelines because community input and feedback is always a wild card. So it's the tentative timeline that I've put together and that I've shared, but again, depending on how deep we go and how the conversations go, the various opinions that may be brought forward, that may swing the pendulum one way or the other in terms of timing. But at least we have an idea of the timing that we want to hit. And so I'm going to try to keep us to that. But again, there's so much that's in my control with community input and feedback and in the interest of your particular community, which is going to be very important in this conversation. So I hope that we, my goal is that we talk about who will be on this work group tonight. I would like us, if it's realistic, to meet weekly on it. I do have some thoughts on language and some sections and ideas of reorganizing the ordinance. So I can provide this work group with something to start with and chew on and have feedback with or for. But I would really like to see us get started as soon as possible.
Eric, can you remind us the composition of the work group that we're looking at?
Right, so I'd like it to be no more than 5 or 6 people, not including myself. So preferably at least 2 from the panel. We talked about having a community member, and then we talked about potentially having someone from legal there and or potentially someone from the police department. And so those are things that need to be discussed by the panel. It's not, obviously set in stone, but just, a suggestion for discussion purposes for the panel.
Sarah, and so maybe let's start there, panelists. So the question is, for this working group, if we want to invite a member of the police department and or a member of the city's legal team, the city's legal team to join this working group. And so opening the floor for comments and feedback on that option. And I see Milan, I see your hand first.
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm wondering if we could have, I mean, I understand city legal, but I would like to also have an independent legal advisor for this panel to review the ordinance. Can we request that?
I think you can request it, but in terms of getting a definitive answer, I'd have to take that as a follow-up.
Yeah, I think that would be important for us to have an independent legal advice.
I too agree with Milan and join her in that request.
Milan, just clarifying, are you saying that, excuse me, you would want the legal advice to be an independent voice, or you would prefer both, to have city involved and an independent? Yeah.
I would definitely want to have an independent and then would be interested in hearing the advantages of having the city legal be there. But I think it's very important for this panel to have an independent person there. Thank you.
And for clarification, this is independent counsel for purposes of providing advice on the changes to the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
I think one of the advantages of having city council, gosh, sorry, it's been a long day, y'all. Having a city attorney involved in the working group is also that eventually, I mean, the ordinance has to be passed by city council and vetted by city attorneys. And so looking at this expedited timeline, getting city attorneys engaged in the process as soon as we can may help us to move faster, in my opinion, because it eventually, right, we have to get it past that final vote. And so that was kind of my thinking around, having a city attorney representing on the working group. Yeah, Hadassah.
And remind me if I'm wrong, but I think we've requested independent counsel various times. And I don't recall that we've ever gotten any sort of response on that. Am I recalling correctly?
I think what we did here is that if the budget wanted, so the panel and the monitor have a shared budget, and if we wanted to apply budget to hiring independent legal counsel, that's an option for us.
Okay.
Of course, we'd want to make sure that we have to make sure we've established the relationship that independent counsel has with the city and city attorneys, but that hasn't been, a no, you can't do it. It has been a, hey, pick your legal counsel and set your budget. So yeah, so I think that's an option for us.
Okay, thank you.
Chico?
I was just looking at the numbers that Farah is talking about, 5 to 6. If we're gonna have independent counsel from the city, from the police, 1 from the community, 6 not gonna work, numbers wise.
So my preference is to keep it small, but obviously that's just my recommendation. I have done this work with a group of 15, and I'll just be very frank with you, that was a lot of people, and it was just a lot. So under 10 would be great, but 5 or 6 is ideal because it's a smaller ordinance. It's very specific and directed. But I just find going over 10 is challenging.
Thanks, Farah. Corey, yeah.
Ms. Wilson would like to know why only 1 community member. How is that going to be decided?
Again, these are just suggestions. And we're talking about that now. So the panel hasn't discussed how it would be decided, because this is the first opportunity that the panel has had to even talk about the makeup of the work group. So that's really the purpose of this conversation.
Yeah, Soledad.
Yeah, I understand the idea behind it. I think that it's a huge time commitment. If like I'm meeting an hour, 2 hours weekly is a lot to ask. So how long do you think this process will take?
So ideally speaking, we would like to have some sort of working draft of some sort by mid-June. I had tentatively put on the project timeline doing a community event the week of June 19th. Again, this is all fluid. I just put dates up that made sense, but knowing that it's going to have its ebbs and flows. So we were aiming for potentially a community feedback event the week of June 19th. And then around that time, I think through, there'd be opportunities for community to give feedback online through, I forgot the name of the program that Boulder uses. And then I think aiming for a study session with council, I believe in August, because we wanted first session to be in September, first reading in September, and then the second reading and hopefully passage at the October 5th meeting. So going to Soledad's point, I mean, it is going to be quick. It is going to require at least 1 or 2 hours a week, particularly for the, this month, most of June, probably all of July. And then we probably could go bi-weekly in August until we see it through in October.
To jump on that too, Soledad, in the past, we've set kind of a precedent when so like with the selection committee, when 2 panelists served on the selection committee, we pulled back on their other work on the panel to make room for that work as well. That's not to pull away from just how much work goes into the ordinance, but when it comes up to, to meeting our expectations of reviewing cases, participating in, committees, we drew back on that to make room for panelists to serve on the selection committee. And I'd expect us to do the same here. Is that so, if we decide 2 panelists should join the working group, that we would work together to make sure we were facilitating that work with them by picking up their work in other areas of the panel. Chico, I saw your hand go up. Did you still have?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Just wanted to double check. Thanks. Yeah, Milan.
I do have a question regarding who is working in terms of the panelists working on that committee, because I'm interested in the ordinance and how it's, changing and all that, but maybe I don't have the capacity. It's an example. I don't have the capacity to be there every week, but how would I still be able to make comments and give my opinion on what is decided by the committee? Or is it just I can go and observe as a panel member, but not participate in the decision making? I'm just trying to see how we can navigate that according to our time schedule.
So I envision after we have a good working draft, presenting it to the panel and giving the panel an opportunity to read it and provide feedback. And this can be as open as you kind of you want it to be. I don't think that the work group meetings will be public, but I have asked and the chairs have agreed that I be on the agenda every month to provide an update on what's going on with the ordinance. So I'll be able to provide specific updates at each monthly meeting. But just because you have 2 panelists on the work group doesn't negate other panelists being able to provide feedback. I mean, because assuming it passes and everything goes through in October, as a current panelist, it directly impacts your work and your ability to do your work. So like, I know I would want your feedback on it, generally speaking anyway, because your current panelists, and it will directly impact your ability to do the work as a panelist. So there will be opportunity for all panelists to give feedback. It's just the kind of the working part, the working up, rolling up the sleeves and the draft language and all that kind of stuff. That is just easier to do if you limit it to a smaller group than if we did it, as 11 panelists or as 10 panelists. I can just tell you that is just very challenging logistically.
And just as a follow-up, if I may, I think up to now we had 3 panel members on that committee. Is 2 also a number like that, or we could have 3 or 4 panel members working in that committee?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by committee. Am I?
All right, the ordinance committee, you mentioned 2 panelists, am I?
So the reason why I'm mentioning 2 is primarily so that we can work together as a group and don't necessarily have to have it as a public official meeting all the time.
I
And
see,
to keep
I see.
the number smaller, but that doesn't mean that like I can send updates to the panel as we're working on it. I can also report on it every month at the public meeting. So it's not like, we're meant to keep this. This is not going to be a secret. It's just that when you really need to roll up your sleeves and working, the bureaucracy like blocks a lot of the ability to do that. So it was just a recommendation to limit the work group to 2 panel members for the logistics and the ease of getting the work done. But there will be full transparency, particularly and especially with the panel, because we need you guys to be involved and aware of the changes and up to speed on the changes, because I mean, council's not only going to want to talk to me about the changes, they're going to want to talk to you about the changes, and you are going to have to be up to speed and know and hopefully support what the work group recommends. And so you will be fully aware of what's happening as it's happening.
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood work group versus committee, so thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
and I want to specifically call it a work group so that it doesn't get confused with the committees. And so the work group is specifically for the revisions to the ordinance, which is separate and apart from your panel committees, because it just gets too confusing.
Panelists, other thoughts or questions? Maybe so to circle back, so on the question of legal involvement, it seems, the suggestion is that we would ask a city attorney to be involved in the working group. Raising up Milan and Madeline to say that we're going to ask Farah if she could inquire about if we could get independent counsel involved with the working group as well. So we'll circle back on answering that question. Unless panelists, if there's any panelists who are opposed to that exploration, please speak up. But then to that second question about a representative of the Boulder Police Department being present on the working group. Comments or feedback or questions?
Just a clarifying point, the implementation team, which originally created the ordinance, did have 1 police officer or 2, do you know?
Madeline, can you answer that?
What was the question?
How many officers were on the implementation team when the ordinance was first being written? Because I think there were some officers
if I
on it,
recall,
right?
There were.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think there were 2. I know Alice Stark. That's when I
Okay.
met him, so I know he's there. And it seems to me there was another one assigned. Usually around 2, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Mhm.
And members of the public, just to acknowledge, Madeline was actually on the implementation team. And so thank you, Madeline. You're a big reason why we're all here today. So thank you. And I heard, Sterling, I see your hand. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I wasn't part of it, but I do believe there were 2 officers that were involved in the original implementation of this. And I think if you really want to do like have good collaboration with the department and get buy-in with the ordinance and revisions to it, it would be best to have some involvement from an officer with it. Thank you.
I think it makes a lot of sense too to have at least one member of the PSU team involved as well, since they're so integral to this work and the relationship between the department, the monitor, and the panel. So making note of that. Soledad, yeah, I see your hand.
Yeah, just a quick question. Sarah, can you please repeat your idea of how many people and who from where? I didn't catch everyone, so I know, I don't know. I need that clarification if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, no problem. So initially I said 5 to 6 people, not including, because I would be, facilitating it, so I wouldn't count in the numbers. And so initially we thought two from the panel, 1 member from the community, potentially 1 person representing the city attorney's office, and 1 person from the police department. And then with Milene's and suggestion is potentially outside counsel. So those are just, suggestions. The only thing that I'm, kind of crossing my fingers and toes is that we just keep it under 10. But I mean, that's just something that I just put forward.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks.
I agree, Farah. Under 10 is absolutely more effective than 10 or more. It's difficult to get 3 to make a decision. You can imagine what it's like to get 10 to make a decision and agree. So I agree with you.
I think Milan, I think your hand was up, and then Corey.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, just to repeat, I would like to see maybe at least 2 or 3 community members, especially people we're representing. It would be good to have their feedback as well. Sure.
And I'm sorry, Daniel, this is the first meeting where I keep getting questions from the community. Are you okay with those being inserted as well?
That's a good question, because I don't think we've posed that to the panel before to interject questions from the community mid-meeting. We've only approved public questions and feedback in the comments section. So I think we'd need to, and acknowledging, sorry, I missed this when you brought up the first one and I should have recalled sooner. Okay, so we'll press pause for a quick second. Panelists on this question. So if members of the community put questions into the QA, do we want to answer those in the midst of the meeting, or do we want to continue referring community members to the public comment section, or else to email us after the meeting to be in touch with answers? And so what we would need is a motion to go ahead and answer Q&A live in the meeting for us to vote on if we wanted to do that.
I'm not opposed to it.
Let's say based on some of our previous meetings, like that wouldn't even be possible based on the types of questions that were asked. So
Yes, fair. Good point, Victor.
Sam, there you are. Sorry, you're dancing around my screen.
Mostly I'm worried about time, because I think this next one about suspending the panel's work is the main item for today. We want to make sure we have time to get to it.
Okay, so in that case, if there isn't a motion to change practice, we'll go ahead and say, members of the public, thank you for your feedback. We do have public comment at the end of our meetings, and you're more than welcome to reach out to that panel email address with any questions, comments, or concerns, and we can address them this way. But I do not have a motion to change our meeting practice at this time. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for your patience too, Corey. Cool beans. Okay, so back to the question. Back to the composition of the working group. We've touched on legal. Yeah, Chico.
So we still haven't resolved how will members of the community will be selected.
And we could. Yes. And so I think to Farah's point, we need to identify what the composition of the group is. And then our next question is how we fill each of those positions. And so, because we also need to do that, decide how we want to select a member of the BPD, how we want to select ourselves for this committee, as well as a member of the community. And so our first question in front of us is identifying the composition of the committee. We can vote to approve that. And then, then we'll turn this discussion to how we actually fill each of those seats. Unless you're saying, I should circle back, unless you're saying how we'd select community members might impact the total number of community members we involve. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jason.
Maybe this is not something anybody likes, but I think we should have a committee to deal with the issues and think about the various goods and bads, and then present that to the group at another meeting, and then we can vote on it then. I think there's too many things interplaying here. At least that's my idea. So I would make a motion to table these questions and a motion, maybe the motion is to create a committee to discuss the issues to be presented to the group, so that it can be an organized discussion and answer at the next meeting.
Yeah, Madeline.
Yes, I want to make sure I'm understanding the actual issue right now. Would you clarify for me? Are we saying, are we deciding if we're going to increase the number of committee members, or what was that discussion, or those thoughts about that, or comments?
So the question Farah's brought us today is identifying the composition of the core working group on the ordinance. What's proposed was, so what was proposed, and Farah, we should maybe circle back. Farah, Hadassah, OIR group, and Amy have discussed this question in our chairs meetings leading up to this. So Jason, there has been some preliminary conversation about this. And so what we're putting in front of the panel today is the option of a legal representative from the city, a legal representative from BPD, a representative from the community, and then two members of this panel serving on the committee. And so what we're discussing now is if that's the right composition, if we should change that composition, and then we need to take a vote on it so that Farah can, so we can start moving forward. Is that?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I am of the opinion that we, because I say for the people, of the people, by the people, I think we should have at least more than one community member. If we go back to the beginning of how this was started, why it was started, and the tone and air of what's going on in society today, I think the community would appreciate and probably have more regard and be more interested, invested to have more more input. So yeah, definitely have as a question and a decision to be made that we certainly increase it from one as far as community representation.
Yeah, Hadassah.
Thanks, Daniel. I think when it comes to so in terms of tabling or waiting, I might have missed this, but we really don't have time. Unfortunately, if we really want this ordinance to be done ASAP, then we need to get on it. It needs to happen, and this vote should have actually happened last month. And so in order to let Farah, assist Farah in getting to work and getting this started, it's really urgent that we have and we make a decision in terms of who is going to be on this working group initially, so that we can start getting that work done. So I think personally, if we're thinking about the four categories are POP, police oversight, attorneys, Boulder police, and community, then I think there should be 2 of each. And that leaves us with 8. And so, potentially in terms of, inside and outside legal counsel, that leaves both to, Alistair and maybe somebody else, 2 POP, and then 2 members of community. Historically, his selection committee has 2 members of community. I think it's a good number to start with for now. And of course, we will have time for community to input later on. So we kind of need to get it going. So those are my 2 cents.
Thanks, Hadassah. Jason, I saw your hand. Is that still a live hand? Or are you good?
Well, what I would say is that now I understand, and I withdraw any suggestion of tabling. And 2, with all due respect to Madeline, I think each and every one of us is also a representative of the people. So, but I do think that the people's voice will be heard. So I don't know that we need more, although if Hadassah's thought is a motion, I would second it.
And clarifying, so Jason, 2 of each category, 2 community, 2 panel,
Correct.
2 legal, 2 police. Thank you. Okay. Soledad, I think your hand was first, and then Milan's.
Yeah, I have a thought suggestion, because I feel we just spent a bunch of time trying to guess what we were doing. And we just, I think I'm just now hearing clearly what is presented and what is being asked from us. And I think if we can start there, this would have been like so much easier. I've been trying to guess what's happening for a while, and now I finally have it clear. And I know that you've been having this conversation, and so the more reason to kind of land with that explanation first. Like, I think it would have been helpful to start the conversation saying, we met, this is who met, like, I don't know, whenever you met, this is what we discussed, this is what we're presenting, and this is what we're asking from you. Well, I agree that kind of this is who we are. We are members of the community, and I think, and I also think that it's important for everyone to participate in this review of the ordinance. My fear is that when you invite members of the community to be part of that selection process cannot be rushed if you want to respect people applying or volunteering, being selected or whatever. I mean, we all know what happened when that happens, right? So, so I think we need to be thoughtful. Like, we don't want to ask something that we're not ready to respond. So if we're gonna have an opportunity for community members to apply or to volunteer for this, how are we gonna choose? Who is choosing? How that process is gonna go? And that process only might jeopardize the whole other work because we didn't do enough good of a job selecting these 2 community members other than who, naturally is going to be part of the group. So that's my fear right now. We're under so much scrutiny, if you want, I don't know if it's the right word, that I don't want to expose us to another situation where we can start working because we have to respect the process. And I don't foresee selecting 2 members of the community, whomever it is, or apply or is interested, and selecting them out of respect in less than, I don't know, 2 weeks to promote, to advertise people in an equitable manner that people can apply or can express interest, and then carefully, selecting them and respectfully handling that process. So I'm a little bit troubled here with that, because I think we need to look for coming up with a legitimate process. So then, whatever comes out of this work group is also legitimate in the eyes of the people that we represent. So that's my fear.
Thank you. Milan, and then, yeah, Sam.
Yeah, I hear Soledad's concern and somewhat share it. An idea I'm thinking about, I mean, there are a lot of organizations that work for some people in our community that we could reach out to and ask them to maybe offer some members of their community, so that we make sure that we're listening to this impacted communities. The thing I wanted to propose for tonight, maybe for deciding, could we go down the list and say, are 2 panelists enough for this work group? How many community members? And just go down the list and see who wants only 1 community member, who wants 2, and then decide that way. Would that be a possibility, to have a motion to go down the list of suggested people by FARA for us to agree on a number one by one, and to get this process going so that we can go to the next point of the agenda?
Yeah, so the standing motion is 2 community members, 2 panelists, 2 2 representatives from the police department, and 2 legal representatives. And so if you have input on changing that number now, I
would like to make a motion that we don't vote on the group itself as a whole group, but to vote for each category offered by FARA. And propose, like for the community members, we don't know if we want 1 or 2 or 3, can we vote on, we're gonna have 2 panelists, we'll all vote for the 2 panelists. Do we want 1 panelist? Raise your hand if you want 1, raise your hand if you want 2. How about the number of police, 1 or 2, or, or abstain? And could we just do it like categories by categories so that we are clear on what we are voting on?
We could certainly do it that way. I think to our earlier points, the concern is the proportion of members. And so if we do start going down the line, we might end up with let's get Sam in here and then we'll circle back then. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, I think it might help to center part of the motivation for this rewrite, right? Which is the upcoming item on the agenda as well is also motivated by something similar, which is the profound failure of city council in upholding the current iteration of the oversight panel, and the immense disappointment this has been to the entire community and the community representatives who were chosen to select members for this panel in the first place. So if the purpose of this is to right those wrongs and bring the community's trust back into the fold, I think it's really important to bring those same community members involved into the drafting of this ordinance, right? And that means the NAACP and El Centro, who are the 2 groups that were completely just overridden, potentially illegally, by the city. So I think that that's my 2 cents. I don't think we should have a selection, like a rewrite committee that's half police/city staff and half community members /panel, because why does it need to be such a tug of war between 2 sides that have been on opposite sides of this issue? We are the panel overseeing this rewrite. I think as many of us should be on it as are available. And we should include the NAACP and El Centro. And any discussion about like other community groups I'm open to, but I think those are the two key stakeholders I'd like to see involved.
Okay, so circling back on this question from Farah, so we need a working group of less than 10 or fewer folks. What we have right now is a proposal of 2 community members, 2 panelists, 2 representatives from the police department, and 2 legal representatives, 1 from the city, but 1 potentially being independent. We also have a suggestion from Milan to go category by category and vote on a number to serve on the committee. But back to Sam's point, I think the composition is the question here, the proportion of members. And so Milan, I feel like that's the spirit of the vote right now, is not so much, if we go one by one, I feel like we're going to circle back on this question, is what's the right proportion of constituencies in that group. So that was my thinking, but Jason?
It seems to me that we could do some sort of a vote preliminarily, and then at the end, once we look at the composition, we can say, should we change this at all, and go from there.
And that is what we have. So we have a suggestion here, y'all. 2 panelists, 2 POP, 2 BPD, 2 legal representatives. Do we want to adjust those numbers, right? That's the discussion. Yes, Sam?
Yeah, let me just put a counter proposal on the table. 1 BPD, 1 legal representative from the city, at least 2 community members, right? NAACP and El Centro Amistad, and up to however many remaining POP members / community members to round it out.
Sorry, Sam, when you say to round it up to the 10?
Yes, up to 10, right?
Yeah.
I agree with Sam. I have one other question, Daniel. Is there any, and I guess this would be for Farah, is there any concern in terms of that number being kept to be an odd number to avoid ties?
No, because it's not really going to be like a formal group. There's not going to be votes or anything. It's really about logistics and schedules and being able to get the work done. It's just easier when it's a smaller group.
Okay.
And then, obviously if more than two panel members want to participate, then it'll always be a public meeting, right? And so that has its own set of challenges that we've discussed in other meetings. And so, but in my perspective, the panel members who aren't necessarily on the work group will still always be involved, because I will be updating the panel as a whole anyway as we go throughout the process. So it's not like, the other panel members will be in the dark. It just doesn't work that way.
Got it.
Milan, then Hadassah.
Okay, I just have a question for Sam. Like, you didn't mention the independent legal counsel. Is that something that you don't want, or that you?
No, I don't have any opposition to that.
Okay, thank you. And then go ahead.
I just hope they're more independent than the independent legal counsel the city found for Lisa's complaint.
I think that would be for us to decide who the independent counsel is rather than the city. Because obviously that doesn't work. And so I agree with Sam's proposal. If we can have an independent legal counsel that the panel selects and the city pays for.
Hadassah?
Thanks, Daniel. I kind of wanted to remind people, it's kind of, for me, a reminder, like the work that we're doing is a quick turnaround and is to update the ordinance that is already in place. And so I really, really urge us to make sure that we are choosing people that are in the midst of it, that know what's going on, that aren't going to complicate things and are going to understand the urgency and have that availability with that urgency. Because we're not trying to rewrite everything, we're just trying to improve what we have so that we can keep doing the work. And so, there's definitely going to be a time for all of community and any community to give input and to give insight. But if we really want this turnaround and work to be done quickly and efficiently, then I think it's best to focus on people that are familiar with what we're doing and go from there instead of trying to re-educate people and reinvent the wheel. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I have to say, from the consultant side, I have to agree with Hadassah. This is not meant to replicate the committee that Madeline was on that created the oversight panel. This is not it. This is, we're 3 years in, we see some gaps and we need to update it. And so this really isn't the same type of lift. And there will be opportunities for community input, but it's not, I don't want there to be like a drawing of a comparison because you guys already did the heavy lift. This is really to fix the gaps that group, after speaking to them, anticipated would happen. They knew that we were going to be here and need to make changes. And so we're just here to make those changes with the group to, push it through and see where the gaps are. And so the other thing that is really important is having people on the work group that understand the nuances of the work, because what's happening is that you have a group that created the panel, very well intentioned, but there are gaps in actually the implementation of the work. So people who are actually have been immersed in the work are in a better position to provide feedback on the panel 3 years later, because you're in it, right? And you have more intimate knowledge of it. And so I do think in your recommendation to who you select to be on it, it's more helpful to have at this stage of like looking back and seeing like, okay, we know they were well-intentioned when they met this, but this did not happen in reality, are people who are already really immersed in the work. And it's not in an exclusion, it's just an area of understanding to help understand what the implications are of the language in the ordinance, like in the true application of it.
Thanks, Farah. I'm gonna make a quick note on time here. I think we should take a break within the next 5 to 10 minutes. But just noting that in case anyone's looking for a bathroom break soon, we will take a break in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Milan?
I think I want to be careful about expediency. I think that obviously there has been some major issues with the ordinance, and we want to make sure that they don't happen again, at least not to that extent. There will be things left, but I would prefer to make sure that we take the time to write an ordinance that's going to work for this panel and for the communities that we are serving. And also, I just lost my point. I also want to make sure that I understand that the people who have been on this panel have more experience than I do, but I also feel like some of us on this panel are bringing new perspective that need to be addressed, and a new look and a fresh look at the ordinance as it's written. And so I value the experience and the wisdom of the people who have been on the panel, but also really value new fresh look on it. So those are my 2 points on that. I just want us to be extra careful and bring in all the people that we need to make sure that we are covering everything that we need to be covering. Thank you.
Sam, then Jason, then Hadassah.
So we're going to talk about how we're potentially going to suspend all the panel work until this ordinance is revised. So this revision is not just like a low stakes tweaking around the margin, fixing some punctuation. This is about fixing the structural issues that got us here in the first place and the things that allowed the city council to act the way they did. And in order to regain the community's trust, I think this has to involve the community. And like, as others have been saying, that can just be more transparent. Like, it doesn't need to happen behind closed doors. I think this would be a stronger process with more community involvement in public meetings in lieu of the regular panel meetings. Like, this needs to be a space for the community to figure out what went wrong and to talk about how it can go forward.
Jason?
Okay, Sam raises a very good point. I was going to move the question, suspended debate and move forward. But I'm curious, and I think there's an answer to this that might allow us to vote. The public is still going to be involved, whether they're on the panel or on this committee panel thing or not. They can still communicate with that group. They can still make recommendations. Am I right?
Yes, correct. So reiterating what Farah presented to us, she is scheduling specific opportunities for the community to engage in person on this conversation and to review and give us feedback over a period of time, to send us that feedback at their own leisure after reviewing the proposed revisions as well. And so there's never at any time been any suggestion of cutting the community out of this. It's how to effectively engage the community and engage the community in an equitable way to make sure we can get this done on a timeline. Because, you know, if we don't handle this right, the ordinance doesn't get changed, right? So there is no, the ordinance is here, the ordinance is done, the ordinance is law. We have an opportunity here to revise it, to make it better, to improve it for our community. And so what we're charged with is figuring out an effective process that will make that happen in a timeline that doesn't lose us this opportunity to make this work better. And so, yes, so Farah has laid out that plan across several meetings for us about how the community will be engaged in this process and critically engaged in this process.
And then I would say this committee is not going to make the decision on the law. That's going to happen by the council, right?
The working group is just facilitating the work.
Okay.
Paper pushers, right? They're facilitating the work. They are not they are not the deciding committee on this work.
Okay. Well, in that case, then I move the question. I move to suspend the debate and vote on whatever the most recent version is.
Thank you, Jason. Let's get Hadassah in. Let's just make, since Hadassah did her hand, I'm going to pass it to you, Hadassah, and then I'm going to pass it back to you, Sam, to reiterate the composition that you expressed earlier. Hadassah?
Sorry, I forgot what that hand was about. Ignore.
Of course. Okay, Hadassah, will you cede your time to Madeline then? Is that what that? Yeah, Madeline, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I just want to stress, during the time that we were working initially for the 2 years we spent on this, one of the things that was critical and we stressed throughout was gaining and maintaining the trust of the community. I say that still remains, and we don't get a chance to mess up, to get this wrong, and think that the community, we need to maintain the trust of the community. And it's critical that they see themselves represented. And I agree with Sam. I think the recommendation that he made would suffice to make it, to accomplish that. And it would accomplish somewhat of that concern for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. Hadassah, did you remember? Is that a memory hand?
I did. Just because Madeline mentioning, so implementation team, it was 2 years for them to write the original ordinance. We don't have that kind of time, y'all. We don't. you know, if we're waiting 2 years for an ordinance update, then I think that that's too long. And as we know, 2 years later, they can come back and say, hey, we didn't like what you wrote. And so no ordinance is going to be perfect is my feeling. And I think that we need to make sure that we are covering the gaps, and in the future, always having some sort of eyes and constant revision on this process, that it is not just a one-time thing. This is filling the gaps now, and next year we're going to review it again and make sure we fill any other gaps. It should be an ongoing living process. And this is just the first step of that. So with that, I want to second Sam's recommendation and go from there.
Thank you, Hadassah. And so with a second, Sam, would you list out the numbers for us?
All right, so the key thing was keeping the community groups involved. So a representative from the NAACP, a representative from El Centro Amistad, and one member from the PD, one member from the city, and 2 panel members, right? Since these are just behind the scenes. So that makes 6, and possibly an independent attorney, per Mylene's suggestion, if one can be found. So either 6 or 7.
Thanks, Sam. And since we're getting close to the vote, I'll ask you, could you read that one more time for us to make sure we've all got it crystal clear?
All right, so it's 2 community group members, 2 POP members, 1 PD, 1 city, and 1 independent attorney.
And Sam, do you want to tie those 2 community representatives to the NAACP and Amistad? Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. So panelists, member of the NAACP, member of Amistad, representative from Boulder Police Department, representative from the city, 2 members of POP, and an independent attorney, for a total of 6. That's the motion in second. Yeah. Oops. Yep. So reopening for discussion, Chico. Yeah.
No. I was just gonna say we move on, we vote on this.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah. Hadassah, did you have another discussion point?
Sorry, I did just, I know that we have previous panelists that are interested in being on this. So they would be community members, which means if we are specifically selecting NAACP and Amistad, that would exclude those previous panelists. So just kind of wanted to pose that to the team and say, you know, how do we want to handle that? Do we want to incorporate more numbers for that, or where are we on there?
I think maybe if we wanted to raise up, Martha Wilson in particular had begun leading the charge on community engagement related to adjusting the ordinance. Martha, of course, served on the panel, I should mention, and resigned late last year. And so I know at very least Martha was interested in being a part of this working group, in particular focused on community engagement. So raising Martha into that too. But yes, to Hadassah's question, panelists. And we are at the 10-minute mark. So here's what we're gonna do. We have a number, we have a solid motion. This is how this works, y'all, right? Democracy. It's messy, but we get there. Let's take a 5-minute human break and meet back here at 7:54. I was not in recap of where we were. We were looking at a motion to assign the number of members to a working group. I want to clarify, this is not a committee of this panel. It is, it's not an official capacity group to be taking votes on the ordinance. This is a working group to work with Farah, our consultant, on making revisions to the current ordinance. And so the current proposal is that this group would be composed of 1 member representing the Boulder Police Department, 1 member representing the city, 2 members of this panel, 1 independent attorney, and then 2 community members. And this motion is tied that one of those community members would be a representative of the NAACP, And another of those community members would be a representative of Amistad, La Amistad, which would be a total of, we had the number wrong, total of 7 for this working committee that we're trying to keep under 10. Before we left for the break, we were discussing whether or not those 2 community seats should be held for representatives of NAACP in La Amistad. And we were bringing up that there are former panel members who were interested in participating in this process as those community representatives. And yes, Hadassah, you were next up with your hand. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. And just, I will add, like, I agree. I would have the preference for having NAACP and Amistad be our people because they've been helping us. But it does concern me to tie something to a group that at this point hasn't committed and said that they're available, or is, you know what I mean? Like, we can say that's what we want, and then we have to wait another month to vote because they weren't available or can't do it. And so I think saying 2+ community members leaves it open for specific groups that we want to work with, that we have preference for, additionally for previous panelists.
Why would it take an extended amount of time, Hadassah? You said they haven't said that they would, but they haven't said that they won't, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't want to make assumptions, you know, like, I don't want to assume and say, this is who we're committing to this work, and then there not be anybody available just yet. It's possible that it works out great and they have somebody, and then awesome, then there's no problem. But what if there isn't? You know, that's my only concern with saying it, specifically these groups.
Well, I would be willing to come up with a representative from the NAACP.
Okay.
Within the next 42, not 42, it's 48. 48,
okay.
72 hours.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you think that my concerns aren't concerning, then let's go forward.
No, I'm just saying, well, I'll make sure that's handled.
Okay. Thank you.
So it doesn't. We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Jason, yeah, I see the hand.
Point of order, I think that we have a motion to vote. It's been seconded at least by Victor, and we've heard the question. It's just time to vote. There's no more discussion.
No, Jason, the way this panel is run is that anytime someone wants to discuss, ask a question, make feedback, we do make time for it before the vote.
Okay, appreciate the clarification. And different panels, different rules.
Yeah. That's how we run. Takes a while, but that's how we run. Milan?
I'll be brief. I like the idea of Hadassah saying 2+ community members. I think that would, if we could decide as we go, as we see interest from the community, how many members from the community we are inviting, I think that would be good.
Sorry, so you're suggesting we would,
I would say 2+ community members with an option to bring in former panel members as community members, and potentially other organization members from other organizations who are impacted by police misconduct, for example, or by representing communities who are impacted by police misconduct, so that we can make sure that the people who need representation have representation.
Can you give us
So
some?
2+.
So 2+ is open-ended, and so I guess
Up to 10. Let's maybe cap it.
Even so I'm wondering if maybe we want to touch briefly on the process. So to Hadassah's point about the process of getting these people seated by, right? So our goal is to start meeting next week, right? This working group, we got a week to pull folks together. And so I think leaving that open to, so that would be potentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 community members, 2+ means we're looking for 5 community members in the next week to serve. I will say one thing I like about identifying the NAAC and Amistad is that puts us with a direct action to reach out to them immediately and seek representatives. The more we open this process, the more time we have to take, though, to make sure, I forgot who mentioned it, but I think it might have been you, Milan, like the process of application or other organizations. So I think we got 2 points here. We got the practical side of time and our principled ideology, and we got to bring those together somewhere in a proposal. And so I'm not a fan of 2+ personally. I think we got to put a number on it.
All right, but I'm also thinking of, organizations like Out Boulder or places like that. It would be worth reaching out to them as well.
Yeah, and actually maybe it's helpful. I'm also speaking from an experience I haven't shared. So having led the outreach to nonprofit organizations for the selection committee, that was a 3-month process. And we only heard back from a handful of organizations at the end of that. And so that's what's informing my opinion as well, I should mention. Because everybody's busy, and this is a huge commitment. This is a weekly commitment that we're asking of folks as well. So we have to acknowledge that, I think. Yeah, Hadassah.
I think I will say I'm okay with saying NAACP and El Centro, as long as there is still room to add other community members, as like we said, if Martha is interested, I think that she would be a key voice in that. So, just to have room so that it's not those 2 are filled by those organizations and we can't include anyone else.
Can I maybe suggest that we could adjust one of these seats as held for a formal panel member? We could just hold a seat for a former panelist if we wanted. I don't know. Yeah, Sam, then Soledad.
That was what I was going to propose, that we could have a seat for NAACP. And this is, as you were saying, Hadassah, like reserved for them, but if they aren't available to take it, then we'd reconsider, right? And potentially find someone else. 1 seat for NAACP, 1 seat for Amistad, and 1 for a formal panel member. That sounds fine to me, bringing it up to 8 people.
Okay, so reiterating it then, so 1 representative from BBT. Oh, Soledad, sorry, your hand went down, I lost you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I just think that we're overcomplicating this. It's a work group. We need 6 or 7 people. And my problem with, if we say Centro Amistad, I think they're super committed to the work, and I trust that they're going to find a way to, have someone participate. Also the NAACP too. So I trust that, and I trust what Madeline just said. My concern will be, okay, let's open 1 seat, and who gets to choose that seat? Who among all the, former panelists is going to use that space? Why this panelist and not this other one? And then that's how we lose how legitimate this work can be. I think we need to simplify it. I think 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, that's great. And I will propose we vote on that. I think that the next point on the agenda is very important for us to cover. And I think the work group is that. It's a work group, and we all understood that. I also trust that whoever is on that group is going to keep us informed and updated, and our voice are going to be heard. So I think we need to simplify this. We don't have a lot of time to work on this, and we need to act quickly, especially if you said you want to start working next week like that, No, and I will be troubled if, who is going to choose that 1 person, So yeah.
And so clarifying, Soledad, does that mean then you're saying then we stick to 2 community members, First pick goes to NAACP and El Centro Amistad. 2 members of POP, a representative from BPD, a representative from the city, and an independent attorney, and we keep it at that 7.
Yeah.
That's your proposal. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So panelists, that's the standing motion. 2 community seats. We would give NAACP and El Centro Amistad first pick on those seats, first option to use those seats. 2 members of POP, 1 member of the Boulder Police Department, 1 representative from the city, and an independent attorney. Okay, let's start that as a new motion. Can I get a second for that proposal?
Second.
Thank you, Madeline. Panelists, any final questions, feedback before the panel votes on this? Okie dokie.
Is this an either or? Are we? Because for me, it's a no. It's a we need to include a space for a previous panelist.
Panelists, other thoughts?
What if this is maybe out in left field? What if, but I hope not. What if previous panel members are members of one of the two nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, I mean that's a
possibility.
yeah, that's a possibility, but what if they're not?
Well, I mean, but that, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, specifically, like Martha has done a lot of the legwork and starting to get this ordinance community input. And I know that she's like in the Facebook group, but okay, yeah, I don't know if we want, if she's going to be the one selected or how they do that selection process. We can just be like, Martha, you're in the NAACP, you're also a previous panelist, you're it, or how we want it, how.
No, I mean, if that person is of either organization, they would have the ability to have input. Was what I had in mind, but that's just a thought.
Yeah.
To move us forward.
Yeah, Chico.
I would second Hadassah's view that having a previous panelist is important to this work because they bring in that institutional knowledge that other outsiders wouldn't know. So I'll second that.
Yes, Sam.
It sounds like when people are saying previous panelists, they're really thinking Martha. And I don't think it's undemocratic to just save a seat for Martha. And that would resolve Soledad's issue with selecting this person. Like we can just select it here. It's for Martha. And that would bring us up to 8 people. NAACP, someone other than Martha, Amistad, and I would be happy with that arrangement.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madeline, can you say that again? You broke up.
No, I just said same here.
Thank you. Yeah, Soledad.
Yeah, I will, really want to get this done, but I do want to say that new panelists, we don't know former panelists necessarily. And for me, it's challenging because if you already had names in mind, then we should have started there in favor of transparency. Like this is the person that I have in mind. Let's vote for all these and this, but that would be great. But then I don't really appreciate when we're having this conversation when we already had something in mind to get towards to. I as a new panelist, I'm thinking, okay, well then, how is this being presented, and it troubles me a little bit. So But I want to move things along. So just wanted to mention that. That's my thought.
Thanks, Soledad. So at this point now, we're at the suggestion of 1 seat for Martha Wilson, 2 community seats that we would give the NAACP and La Central Amistad first pick of, 2 members of this panel, a representative from BPD, a representative from city, and an independent attorney. I'm going to go ahead and make that motion based on where we're at. Is there a second for that?
Seconded.
Sam, thank you for the second. Panelists, any final questions, feedback, comments? Okay, in that case, we'll do this by a show of hands then. A show of hands to approve this motion. 1 seat for Martha Wilson, 2 seats for members of the community that we will give NAACP and El Centro Amistad first pick of, 2 members of the panel, a representative from BPD, a representative from the city, and an independent attorney. All in favor of that composition of the working panel, please show hands. Please hold those too, so Corey can get a full count for the minutes. Victor, were you a hand? Just double checking. Thank you. Okie dokie. That's our composition of our panel. Farah and Hadassah, I'm going to ask this question to you both directly first. Do we want to try and tackle right now how we select members of POP, City BPD independent attorney? What do we think? And I'm looking at the time, it's 8:16. We have the rest of the agenda to get to. The other thought is, panel, you could authorize Hadassah and I to act as a subcommittee, to reach out to NAACP, Amistad, Martha, and to reach out to all of you to seek your interest on serving on the panel. And then we could pull the working group together that way. So that's something to consider as well. Knowing the composition, you could authorize Hadassah and I to work with Farah to fill each of these seats. Yeah, I see Madeline, I see your hand, and then Chico.
Daniel, for just for the sake of time, I think I would go with your suggestion. We move along. We've got a lot of issues to discuss.
Thank you, Chico. So I'll go ahead and make the motion. I can make this motion. I'll make the motion to authorize the co-chairs of the panel to work with our consultant Farah to fill the seats of this working group. Chico, do you want to second that?
I will.
I second that.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Chico. Panelists, hands in the air, all in favor for that motion. Please hold them so Corey can count for the minutes. And actually, Corey, let us know when we can put our hands down.
Okay, you're good.
Thank you so much, Corey. Thank you all. Farah, thank you for your patience. Genuinely, thank you all. I know how frustrating these kinds of decisions can be and how it can draw out. I know it's late. And at the same time, I hope we also feel confident that we made a group decision. And at the end of the day, we got there. So thank you. And yes, we do have a very busy rest of our agenda to go here. So I got to find the agenda because it's buried in tabs now. Boom. Okay, so we're on to item 7. Flo, at long last, we're going to turn this over to you to get the intern independent monitors police report.
Corey, can you allow me to share my screen, please? I'm here this evening on behalf of the OIR group, which is serving as the interim independent police monitor With me is Michael Giannaco, principal and founder of OIR Group, and Teresa Magula, also a member of the OIR Group. And Teresa is going to be reporting on 2 of the cases we're going to be reporting on tonight. Okay. So I just wanted to report on the panel's work in the last month. This is information on the case reviews that it conducted. The panel conducted 3 full case file reviews in April. There is 1 case review that it completed and is pending department disposition. There are 12 cases the panel previously voted to review that are awaiting case reviews. 2 case reviews are scheduled, 5 need to be scheduled, and 5 are pending the completion of the department's investigation. The next part of the presentation involves cases that the panel reviewed and that the department closed in April. And the first 2 cases were facilitated by Teresa Magula, and she's going to handle the first 2.
Thank you, Flo. I'm Teresa Magula. I have not met many of you. I was not present at the last meeting, which was the first meeting for many of you. So thank you for joining the panel. Thank you for your commitment to this work, which clearly, since we have dedicated our career to it, Flo and Mike and I believe is essential and very important. So we acknowledge your commitment as well. We had several cases which had the panel's review. 2 of these occurred in the time frame when I was assisting Flo, and one of them is this that we see before us here. It is case 036. Essentially, what occurred is that the complainant called BPD to report that her boyfriend had taken pills. She was concerned and wanted a welfare check. The complainant, however, once officers arrived at the residence, refused to allow officers to enter and actually proceed and conduct that welfare check. She was removed from the apartment so that officers could complete the welfare check, as well as paramedics. Became argumentative, and she was handcuffed and issued a citation. The allegations you see listed here were against 4 officers who responded. The panel, after its review, recommended that officers 1, 2, and 3 be exonerated for their potential violation of General Order 225, which is the use of force, and that the allegation against Officer 4 be not sustained. Officer 4 was had an allegation of being rude and discourteous. The department agreed with those determinations, and that is where the chief landed as well.
Okay.
This next case was a rather complicated one. It is 037. It involves the same landlord and tenant dispute that occurred over the course of several dates. In the particular incidents where the department was alleged of misconduct, the complainant first alleged that officers issued an incorrect citation, and then the second again alleged that officers actually did not issue a citation in that case, and that one officer was discourteous. We had allegations related to the appropriateness of the citations that were issued, as well as one with respect for others. In this case, the panel recommended that officers 1 and 4 be exonerated for their participation, and that the remaining officers have a finding of not sustained for their particular participation in this incident. The rationale was that there was insufficient evidence to come to a complete finding. The department did not agree with those and determined that all officers should be exonerated for the potential allegations. The single sustained allegation was against the officer who was alleged of being discourteous, and that again was sustained by both the panel and the department. Verbal counseling was issued to that particular officer.
Thank you, Teresa.
Back to you, Flo.
Teresa took over for me when I was gone out of the country in the last half of December. Thank you. And continues to assist on an ongoing basis. This third case that the department closed since our last, since the panel's last meeting is 031 of 22. And this complaint stemmed from a divorce and custody battle between a mother and a father, and the complainant's purported violation of a permanent civil court order of protection, which restrains him, with some exceptions, from contacting his sons. The mother, after receiving the permanent civil order, contacted police, gave Officer 1 the relevant legal documents and asked the police to enforce the order. And Officer 1 went with Sergeant to the father's address and found one of the two sons there and spoke with him for about 45 minutes in his bedroom and tried to tell him what was going on and asked him what was going on. At one point, he asked to see the son's phone and looked at it. That showed impermissible contact between the father and son. But given the situation and the situation at the home, the officers did not force the son and the other son who was at school to go to the mom's home. He subsequently provided that, subsequently a detective, Officer 2, was assigned this case, obtained an arrest warrant, and arrested the father for violating the order of protection. The father filed a complaint asserting that the Officer 1 improperly spoke to his son and looked at his phone and spoke to it, and that the arresting officer, detective, improperly used that evidence to arrest him. The panel recommended that that with respect to Officer 2, the way he spoke to the son should be exonerated due to did not find that the officer coerced the son to provide the phone, but Colorado law specifies, and this is reinforced in department policy, that an officer has to make sure during a police contact that an individual knows that he or she doesn't have to provide an item or consent to a search. And that was not done, and the panel recommended that that be sustained with supervisory counseling. And with respect to the detective, they recommended that the allegation be not sustained. The department agreed, and the chief agreed, and the Officer 1 has received verbal counseling. The department exonerated Officer 2. And finally, just some case data. During the month of April, the monitor classified 2 cases as misconduct cases. 1 case is serious misconduct, and 1 case is a community inquiry. Just to give you a sense of what one of the main responsibilities of the monitor is to classify and route complaints. Another responsibility is to actively observe the investigation the department conducts as it goes on, and that includes having the right to observe the department's interviews with officers and other witnesses. The OIR group has tried to attend every single one of those interviews. And in April, we observed 14 interviews. Another responsibility of the monitor is, before the department can close the case, either before it goes to the panel or before the panel, before the department closes it, if the panel has chosen not to review it, the monitor has to deem the investigation thorough and complete. And in April, the monitor deemed thorough and complete for department investigations. At the end of last month, the monitor panel docket stood at 19, including those pending department disposition. That completes the monitor's report.
Thanks, Flo. There we go. Thanks. Okie dokie, moving along. Okay, so panelists, give me just a second to get any members of the public who are watching caught up on our next agenda item. So in light of City Council's decision last week around removing Lisa from the panel, Hadassah and I sent a memo to the panel at large, notifying the panel of our intent to put forward a motion about suspending panel business until we've revised the ordinance. And so what I want to acknowledge is the some of the intent and the feeling and why we're opening this space now to have this discussion. Of course, Hadassah and I do not have the power to suspend panel business. We at no time attempted to suspend panel business. This is a motion we are putting forward as members of this panel to discuss and have a conversation around. And I specifically want to note that the reason we rose this was in particular in light of Lisa's resignation, is that we were hearing from you all intent and concern about leaving the panel, feeling so discouraged that you were ready to suspend panel work by leaving the panel. And so we wanted to create space. We wanted to hold this panel together long enough to have this discussion together, long enough for us to voice our concerns and hopefully find a path forward. And I want to repeat just some of the things we for the public, just so the public knows what we specifically said to the panel, that this motion is being offered in recognition that, over the last year, and before many of our current panelists were even on board, but for a while now, this panel of diverse people has lost its competence in conducting police oversight safely, legally, effectively, and with the trust of our community. And that significant revisions to the ordinance are required to rectify that issue. The motion is also being offered as a bridge to avoid the possibility of this panel's dissolution, and to stand for the continued representation of marginalized people and marginalized voices in the work when we can do it safely and empowered as marginalized people. And it's also offered to recognize the extremity of this situation and the need for us to take bold and courageous actions to decide how we move forward in this work. I've been asking if this has happened before, if there's another oversight board this panel could look to, where a panelist had been removed for anything other than misconduct, and no one's had any examples from me. We're in an unprecedented situation, least of which is that a member of the panel was moved because of their critical viewpoints of police and not for misconduct, and was not removed by this, was not recommended for removal by this panel body. So it's an unprecedented moment. I know we also all feel strongly about this, and I want to be clear about my intent, and I'm going to hand it over to Hadassah. I want to be clear in my intent in bringing this forward is to figure out how we hold this group of diverse people together to continue doing this work. I think we have to find a common cause, a common way forward to keep the work going. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Hadassah.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'll try to keep this quick. I think for me, this feeling comes from, as Daniel said, in trying to keep us together. But even more so, if this, as far as I'm a rules person, I'm a compliance person. You guys know that's my jam. As far as I can see, the selection committee followed the rules of the ordinance. The ordinance was very clear about what we do, about how it is done. That was exactly followed to a T. And if there are questions and doubting that and second guessing that, and what I kept hearing repeatedly by city council when they chose to vote yes on this, was questioning the ordinance. And repeatedly they were like, I just wish the ordinance was fixed. And in an effort to avoid a large scale walkout, what we are proposing instead is sitting in until this work is done. And so that is where we are. That is the feeling and the sentiment that we have, and we would just have this space open for anybody who has any thoughts.
Thanks.
I see your hand, Chico.
And really quick, Chico, just really quick, I want to interject. We did ask Erin to be here tonight to answer any to answer legal questions she can answer in a public venue. Of course, there may be questions we'd rather that she needs to deliver to us through a memo later, or if we want to call Erin for advice. But we did want to have someone from the city attorney's office here about the legality of how and how we can suspend panel operations. One thing we want to note is that the ordinance, of course, designates work for the monitor's office that we cannot suspend. So the monitor's work would continue in accordance with the current ordinance. And there are procedural questions about how we would suspend work as a panel or ask for a, as Erin may explain later, a moratorium on certain parts of the panel's work. With that, yeah, Chico, your hand.
So I'm gonna talk about three things that concern me and which at the moment would drive my decision not to, and I emphasize not to, support any suspension of the panel's affairs. And I'll start. The first being that I think that there has to be a deeper conversation or discussion about the pros and cons of suspending the work we do. And I haven't seen that deep analysis done. That's the first one. The second viewpoint is that our work is not perfect. And it's hard to meet all stakeholder aspirations. With that said, I would rather have half glass full than nothing. Some oversight is better than nothing. That's the second. The third viewpoint is that I know we are talking about reviewing the ordinances, and there's talk about, I think Farah mentioned that one of the curveballs or one of the things that is not in our control is how are we going to determine the time in terms of community feedback. So in short, even if we say we suspend, there is a suspension, we don't know when all stakeholders' concerns are going to be addressed, if they will ever be addressed. So in my view, I think suspension does more harm than good. And I would rest my case until somebody convinces me otherwise.
Thank you, Chico. Panelists, other thoughts? Sorry, I was muted.
It's okay. I was just going to say one more thing. The other part of this is that the point of removal, what a lot of council members were saying was, oh, well, we don't know if, this case is going to go, or whatever case is going to go to arbitration. So when it goes through a complaint, we make our recommendations to the police chief. Some of those maybe are sustained. They go to arbitration, and they don't like a specific panelist that was sitting on that specific case. There was a suggestion that means that they have now leeway to say, oh, well, this recommendation was not valid. And that to me jeopardizes all of the work that we do. And if they're saying we can't accept this case because of the way the ordinance was written, because of the members that are on it, then that jeopardizes all of the cases. That was the only. And I guess the question is, do we feel it, or do we chug along and keep going, knowing that that's been put out there by council.
Thanks, Hadassah. Sam, I see the hand.
Yeah, I agree with Hadassah. I think that this is a really necessary step for us to kind of preserve the panel as it is, because it's not really a question of whether or not we suspend the work or not. I think the work is going to be disrupted no matter what because of council, not because of us, right? The question is whether the panel fragments with half of it quitting, or whether we stick together and say we're going to sit in rather than walk out, as Hadassah framed it. And as you're saying, we need to decide if this very significant investment of time will ultimately pay off, right? Like, I'm putting my PhD on pause to analyze the police's data, but I could very easily do the same thing from outside, right? Like, I could do records requests and do it more journalistically. And the only value of doing it from within the panel is the idea that it would be eventually recognized. But if it will just be discredited as biased, just post hoc, then what's the point of even putting in the work? So I think we need to address those fundamental issues, and we can't do that in the current way of doing things. So I fully support pausing the work until the ordinance is revised. I also think that it relates to the reason they voted to remove Lisa in the first place. The council's explanation was that they will remove Lisa so that the panel's work can just continue, as if this were not a completely political process made up of people from overpoliced communities, as if we would just robotically continue doing this oversight in exactly the way that they want, which is apparently not very critical at all. So I think we need to send council a message, and to that extent, this also serves that purpose. So I support this motion.
Thank you, Sam. Soledad, I see your hand, and then Milan.
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe I'm not as current in the information, but you all have said that there's a number of members that are considering resigning, and I know that I cannot ask this, but I don't know who is resigning or who is planning on resign, and is that true? So that's going to leave the panel halfway or not? I feel a little bit blindsided by that information, which I think is critical to make this decision. And I know that it sounds terrible to put this in a public meeting, but I don't know. I feel blindsided a little bit with that.
I can answer that, Milan. I acknowledge your hand. I'll go ahead if that. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Soledad, I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. Is that I don't want to put someone on the spot, because I'm also trying to convince. I'm trying to convince y'all to stay, right? I want us to find a pathway today where we all cast a vote that says, yes, I'm going to continue with this work. And so that's what I'm trying to find. And so I don't want to call anyone out, but I will, to acknowledge that Hadassah and I have been in touch with with most of you over the course of the last few months about where you're standing on this issue, and hearing what you're saying, acknowledging what we're hearing from you, and that, you know, really it was Thursday evening that Hadassah and I had a phone conversation of saying we're concerned about the number of people who are telling us they are considering resigning or intending to resign. And that was a big motivator for why we put this motion forward. Yeah, Hadassah, is that, yeah. Okay. Milan, then Victor.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty emotional thing for me. Like, I really was very disappointed. And if you don't mind, Daniel, I'd like to read something, because I think that in order for me to express everything that I have to say, I have to write it. So would it be okay for me to read something?
Yes, I think so. Just keeping an eye on the time, Milan. I'm not making assumptions about how long it is, but yeah.
No, it's not very long. I think it's within the 2 minutes set by the city. Thank you. So I want to call white supremacy with last week, when the city council whitewashed the selection committee's decision to select and confirm Lisa Sweeney Moran, a selection committee composed of representatives from 2 important organizations of color in our community, the NAACP Boulder County branch and El Centro Amistad, as we talked about before, as well as representative of the existing panel at the time and members of the city staff. Out of the 3 complaints that were in the report, Zaid Atkinson was the only person of color and the only victim of police misconduct dismissed outright, while the other 2 were upheld. Let's remember that Mr. Atkinson's case was pivotal in the creation of this police oversight panel to protect vulnerable people like him. By making this decision, Mr. Douglas, the council, or this recommendation rather, Mr. Douglas, the council hired by the city, showed a lack of understanding of the situation in Boulder, a lack of knowledge of the purpose of the panel, and a lack of awareness of the pervasiveness of racism in his own work. So in fact, the code Mr. Douglas followed blindly was never written to represent Black and brown people, queer people, people with disabilities, and house people and other marginalized community members. It was meant to, and still does, uphold white wealth in a white supremacist system. So how much DEI work has this council done, and how is he selected, and why? And what about the city council members who voted to remove Lisa? I think they don't have any biases, since they were very quick to cast their stones. So I just want to say also, like Lisa, I'm a new panelist. I didn't know Lisa before sitting on the panel, but after going through a few training sessions and meeting alongside her and other panelists, I want to say I have the utmost respect for her, for the questions she asked, for the focus she brought to this work, despite all the vilification she was subjected to, and for her intelligence, experience, and perspective that I don't have. She was bringing something that we really needed. So the decision made last week is also clear disrespect of this police oversight panel, as the panel itself should have had the authority to decide on what to do in this case. And I'll just finish with a James Baldwin quote. "We live in an age in which silence is not only criminal, but suicidal. For if they take you in the morning, they will be coming for me that night." This vilification of one of us was an attempt to intimidate us and the work we're here to do. I personally am not intimidated, and I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. And Victor, I see your hand.
Yeah, I would just say, in light of the potential disruption to the panel with multiple, members quitting and setting us back, months, not just weeks, I think a small pause to take a few steps back, makes sense. If we're, entering a situation where we could be set back, multiple months. Just also noting that this is a period of transition with, newer panel members, and we still have a monitor to go through as well. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I think some of that will still continue even if we did pause. But again, I would just like to vote in favor of, pausing the work to preserve the panel in the short term, with the focus on the ordinance in the long term. And I'm just going to have to go off camera just due to the time.
Thank you, Victor. Jason, I see the hand.
I wanted to listen to everybody because I have the sense that I started from a different place than it sounds like everybody else. I don't know if there is a person out there that embodies the antithesis to what we all want to do. But if there is, I tried to put myself in the role of that person and think about what we're deciding right now. And if I were that person, I would be laughing with glee that the police are not going to be looked at, and there won't be oversight. They have succeeded in shutting us down and preventing us from doing our job by taking away one of us. I think that we prove ourselves by doing our work and doing it well, and let the chips fall where they may. My frustration so far being on this committee or this panel is that I don't ever get to review cases and do casework. That's what I want to do. I want to review cases and do casework. So that's where I am. I respect all of you and your points of view, and I do understand. I mean, I know that one of the things that we're talking about here is not just today, but next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. And I think that that's important. But I also think that by us doing our job and doing it well, we'll be showing that too. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And off of one thing you had said too, Jason, about continuing of oversight, since I don't see any hands, I'm going to take a quick moment to add just a little color to what's behind this motion. First thing to remember, this would not impact the monitors' work in oversight, and so we are a hybrid oversight system, and so the work of the OIR group would continue to conduct oversight, to work on investigations. The PSU in the Boulder Police Department would continue as well. We would only be looking at a moratorium on our work, the work that's under the panel's jurisdiction. And so the color I'll add, we raised this briefly in our meeting, the co-chairs meeting on Friday with Aaron, and essentially, if we were to continue forward with this motion, we would be talking about when what business of the panel we would be pausing, we would be putting a moratorium on, and we would ask council, we would request council to allow us, Aaron, correct me if I got this wrong, but we would request from council a start date or terms on when the pause on that work would begin, and then when the pause on that work would end. Is that correct, Aaron?
That's correct.
Thank you. And so that's kind of the color to this situation as well, is that so if we continue with the motion, recognizing what Hadassah and I put forward was very broad so that we could have an open discussion. Eventually, if we were to move forward with this motion, we would need to clarify what panel business would be paused, when that pause would begin, and when that pause would end. And the key thing being that Hadassah and I had suggested that any pause, the end of any pause would be triggered by the revisions to the ordinance being made. And so I'm just inviting that. And now I do see Sam's hand, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Sam.
Yeah, I wanted to express sympathy for what you're saying, Jason. As a data nerd, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than nerding around in the PD's data and finding out what they're doing. And I can understand you wanting to get in the weeds with the cases and really dig into the oversight. And I think it's a tragedy that we've ended up in a situation like this, but unfortunately, sometimes we just don't have the luxury to be in our little comfort zone, right? Sometimes we find ourselves in political fights larger than what our day-to-day work demands. And it's our responsibility to take a step back and think about how our work ties in with a bigger picture. And in this case, the sort of role that city council has played in setting us up for failure. I think that going to what you were saying, Daniel, that can you clarify a bit for me what you meant about having council approve the start and end dates of the stoppage?
So we would send, this panel is a legal body, and there is the ordinance is standing law for what this body needs to do, which is primarily the review of these cases. And so to pause the work, we would need to send a request to council that the panel for the panel to put a moratorium or a pause on its existing work. And so I think primarily that's our committee work and that's case reviews. And so, because of course we want to continue the ordinance work. And so that would be, I at least think we would still want to go through that legal process to maintain credibility as we move forward. And so that is the legal route ahead of us of how we can do this as a legal body. And acknowledging too, Jason, I hear what you're saying, because, you know, for the last 2 years, I came here to review cases, and that's been less than 30% of my work since I've been on this panel. You know, we wrote the bylaws. We got into, you know, conflicts with our community, conflicts with city council, this conflict. I'm exhausted, y'all. It took us, what, an hour and 15 minutes to decide what a working group would be. That's not case reviews. It's not the core work of oversight. And so this, you know, I think the balance here is that we're in a situation where this work pauses in one of two ways. One, the panel walks, or two, we sit in and try to find a way together forward. And my imminent fear is that if I walk away from this work, or I allow myself to be removed from this work, it's who I'm replaced with. And I'm trying my best to represent my viewpoints and experiences as a queer person. And I think if diverse people walk away from this process, diverse people won't walk towards it again. And I fear for giving up these seats. And so if my option is the panel walks or the panel suspends business, my vote is going to be for suspending business. My vote is going to be for sitting in and holding these seats for the diverse folks who are still here. And that's just my thought. Yeah, Sterling, I see the hand.
Yeah, so this is a question that maybe Aaron can answer best. Well, what happened to the cases that you guys have already agreed to review if you do vote to pause? Like how do you feel that would affect the obligation to the community to review the cases?
Yeah, I can answer that, Daniel, if that's all right. So what we had talked about is that the panel could say when or make a recommendation. Like, we have cases and work we need to wrap up, so we would like to go on pause as of a date certain. And I think that's a discussion for the panel to figure out if that would make sense, if that's a direction you're looking at. You know, what date would work for all of you in your work?
Thanks, Aaron. And so that was something we had kind of brushed on, Sterling, was that we might go ahead and complete the review of cases that we've already approved, but we might consider that we wouldn't take on any new cases until the new ordinance was in place, was one of the recommendations. So we can have that discussion. Sam, is that a new hand or an old hand? New hand, thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate your emotional words on this, Daniel. I agree almost entirely with what you said, except for one key point, which is I don't see how the city council that got us into this situation can make a decision about whether or not we should continue, whether or not how can we get permission to sit in from the place we're sitting in? That's not a sit-in. We need to just do it. We need to just stop reviewing cases and stop our panel business until council looks this situation in the eye and realizes that they can't have it both ways. They can't claim to be this like magical progressive city and keep gutting the police oversight panel. And I saw the city city staff's comment to the press that this would open us up to more complaints. I say, let them file more complaints. That's the process that we were in. The complaint process is clearly broken, as Bob Yates is now realizing for himself, now that he has one filed against him. There will be complaints no matter what. This is the city's problem because, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Aaron, I think, yeah, Aaron, and then, yeah, Madeline, and then Soledad.
Well, Sam read my mind a bit. What I wanted to say was to make sure you understand the potential risks. So if you just stop working, that could be a code of conduct complaint against you and potentially grounds for removal. So my understanding is the idea of the sit-in is to hold the seats. And so going through the process would, ideally avoid those sort of risks, and council would approve it and the work would be paused, but you would remain in your seats with the blessing of the council.
Thank you, Aaron. Madeline, and then Soledad.
As a product of the civil rights movement and many marches, sit-ins, and protest, I can't recall one where we got permission to do any of that. Change happened as a result of taking some very drastic actions. And whatever is decided, it has to be decided with heart, it has to be decisive, and it has to be unified, whatever that is. And that's all I'll say for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. Soledad.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of thoughts, and I do want to share. I have no words about what happened. I know we don't have the opportunity to talk, and I know that some of us have been looking for that opportunity to kind of share, and it's difficult, and it's full of rules, and it makes things kind of difficult to manage, I think, and put you, the co-chairs, in a position where you're hearing all this, and that's kind of hard to manage. But anyways, I do feel that what happened put me, and I'm going to talk about myself, in a position where I'm really thinking, do I want to voice my opinion to risk someone complaining, and then city council put me on the spot like Lisa was? As a woman of color, I don't want to be there, and I tend to react and avoid that fear and being placed in that position. But I also know that I'm here for a reason. The only thing that I would like to understand better is what is the outcome that we're looking for. That's my first question. And my second one is that, can we, as a panel, seek an opportunity to have a conversation with council about an open conversation about the implications of what just happened, that is not happening in social media or through the news? Can we have a conversation or an opportunity to talk about what's going on, in person, I guess, or directly, and not through all these platforms that are messing things up even further? That's my.
Thanks, Soledad. Yeah, and Madeline and Sam, to your point, I've got feet in everyone's camp right now. I think on Friday, my response was that how do we request not to volunteer, right? It doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right. And so and so, yeah, I was representing that route as again, trying to propose those options that we've 11 people here have got to figure out how we move forward together without a critical number of us walking away from the work. And so, putting all the options on the table to bring us all into this conversation. Yeah. Sam, yeah, I see the hand.
Yeah, just to try to very directly respond to Soledad's question about what do we hope to see. Personally, what I want to see is the community groups that were betrayed by the city council be satisfied with the outcome of this ordinance process that we're putting through. Like if we get to an ordinance that gets passed where NAACP and Amistad both say like, that looks good to us, we have confidence in this process, that's when I think, we can continue to do this work in a way that like has the backing of the community, right? Because we were selected with their blessing. And so we owe it to them to fight for these changes that will make it possible to do the work. So to me, this is, sit in, like, the whole point is to build power, right? Like if we're asking them for permission, we're still just acknowledging that they have the power to remove us and that we care about our seats more than we care about the power. But what we have to do is just hold our seats, as Madeline was saying, bravely and just with heart, and risk being removed, right? Like, what can they do? Someone can file a complaint against us. What happens then? Well, it goes to city council. It's the same thing, right? They either decide ahead of time or they decide when they get the complaint. And this way, we're not like weakening our gesture by asking ahead of time. So yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Hadassah, then Milan.
Thank you. I just wanted to add another outcome that me personally, I think that we need an ordinance that city council is going to stand by, not vote twice to approve members and then take back that decision and say, oh, if only the ordinance was fixed. I would like for them to reach a position where city council is going to stand by that decision, stand by us, stand by the selection committee, stand by everything that has been decided in that ordinance and not second guess it and give people that are just looking for ways to shut us down room and leeway and ways to do that. So that's my personal. Thank you.
Milan.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree with what Madeline and Sam just said, absolutely. And Soledad, to answer your question, for me in decisions like this, I'm always asking myself, why am I here for? What is my purpose? And my purpose is here to represent historically marginalized community who have not been part of the process. I think that you being, vulnerable and indicating that you don't like this kind of thing as a person of color, as a woman of color. I'm here so that people like you can voice your opinion and not be afraid, right? The city council members who voted were all white, or presenting as white, I should say. And to me, that is important. The voice of it's on the, it's on the homepage of this panel to give a voice to historically excluded member of our community. This is why I'm here. This is why I feel we need to be strong in our decision. And I'm a new panel. I don't know a lot of you, but I feel a sense of community with this panel, and I totally feel a sense of trust. And I feel that we are here. We cannot let ourselves be intimidated because that's what they want. And that's not my purpose.
Thanks, Milan. Yeah, Jason.
Again, I'm hearing everybody. When I look at the cases that I've had a chance to review, I do certainly see issues that are important. But as a criminal defense attorney and somebody that is close with the public defenders, both in this county and throughout the state, and other criminal defense attorneys, I know that there are cases that we are not seeing. And we're not seeing them because people don't trust that process. And these are cases that involve homeless people, that involve violence, that involve people that don't think they'll ever be trusted. And I want to help them. I'm a little bit stunned by the cases that we've had brought to us, because I think we've had one that involved the use of force since I've been on the panel. And I know that that's not the situation. There's a lot of use of force cases that should be reviewed. I think our biggest issue right now is getting people to say, I should bring that to the panel, and they will do something about it, and they will look at it. In general, I mean, mostly I don't know the whole issue with Lisa, but what I would say is that what I heard was that she was somebody who said defund the police, and I don't want to get into the specifics, but we have a police officer on the panel, and so I would assume, and I certainly don't, Detective, I don't want to bring you into this, but I assume that you believe in the police force and that they should be funded. And I if you don't, that's neat, but whatever. So why wouldn't we want somebody on the group that says defund? It seems like another voice that could balance out. I don't know if that's what the city council made their decisions on or what, but so I'm upset about that idea, but I'm more upset that people who are suffering violence and are not even willing to bring their issue to us. And I would rather be here available for them to talk to than not be here. So thank you.
I want to press pause really quick. It is 9:12. We do need to follow through on our commitment to open up this conversation, open up this meeting for public comment at the end. I want to acknowledge we do have agenda items set for discussing, getting an update from Aaron on the selection of the alternate to fill Lisa's vacancy. We do have cases that have been put forward to the panel to vote on tonight, committee reports as well. And so I'm just making note of that time. As a panel, we've never been in this position before of running so late in a meeting. And so just want to be cautious of our time and our attention for the remainder of this evening. And that's not to necessarily propose anything, but to open that up that, yeah, that as a panel, if we want to continue this conversation, if we want to push to taking a decisive vote on this conversation and moving on to public comment. But yeah, just noting the time for all of us.
I would move that we table this till next meeting so we can finish our work for tonight. I think it's a big issue that we should all think about a lot.
If that's the direct, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Milan and Madeline, I saw Victor, I saw you on mute. Did you have something for us, Victor?
How do you know how to?
No, I did not.
Okay, thanks, Victor. And then, yeah, and then Madeline, you had something, sorry, we'll hand it.
If we, I'm eager to hear comments from the public. But if we decide to move this or defer this for further comment to another time, I'd just like us to keep in one thing in mind. I think we're all Lisa. We are. I mean, from what I understand, in terms of somebody not liking something you said or not agreeing with your perspective, your viewpoint. I mean, I lived a lot of my life, people not liking the color of my skin. Oh, still not. So liking or not liking, I just say it's a decision, but just keep in mind that we're only one somebody's decision away from we're all Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. Milan?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is, to respond to Jason a little bit, it might be a reason why people are not coming to this panel. And if we let ourselves be pushed around by the city council, they certainly are not going to come to us. If they feel like this panel is not solid because anybody can be removed at any point just because of what they say, then we're not solid. And how are we going to represent our community? Thank you. Just one more thing. I think it's really important to make this decision tonight. I think we cannot waste time in that. I don't think that a month is going to change anything. This is what's happening right now. This is kind of pressing. I think it's important to show decisiveness and support of one another in this panel.
Thanks, Milan. Chico, I saw your hand earlier. Do you still have?
I was just going to second Jason's where he said we haven't had time to think about this. That's why in my opening statement I talked about the pros and cons. We haven't really thought about the pros and cons, and we are now trying to make decisions on the fly. And for me, that's not the way I operate.
Thank you, Chico.
I just want to say, in interest of time, you know, some of the updates and stuff can be done by email and voting on some of the cases, and my update can certainly be email. Then if you could just vote and then go to public comment.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, Sam.
So this might be a radical proposal, but it'd be interesting to hear public comment, given that people feel like they want to think for a few more seconds before voting. If it's possible to do public comment first before we vote, we would have a chance to hear what the community thinks on this issue.
Yeah, that's something, Hadassah, am I right? I mean, we could just bump up public comment with the co-chair's authority of the agenda, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I second that.
Okay. I will, sorry, not to jump on that right away. Other panelists, if you have other thoughts, please let me know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can, then in that case, and then at least maybe we can let some members of the public journey forth from this meeting. So let's go ahead and move to public comment now then. Give me half a second, y'all, to pull my shit together. This is a public meeting, excuse me, to pull myself together. It's been a long week. Okay, Corey, could you give me co-host permissions so I can show our stopwatch? or we'll do a time. Okay. Public comment. Okay, so members of the public, thank you for hanging on and being here this evening. I'm just going to run through our rules of public comment. Every member of the public will be asked if they'd like to comment and unmuted to give us their answer. Members of the public, if they would like to give public comment tonight, each member of the public would get 2 unimpeded minutes to comment. If there is an interruption or a loss of connection, we'll stop the clock to make sure we protect your full 2 minutes. I will give you a verbal notice of time at 20 seconds. However, I will also put up on my screen, a timer so you can see for yourself how much time you have left. At 2 minutes, I will ask Corey, our city facilitator, to mute your feed. That's not meant as disrespect. It's just to keep us on track for this evening. And we do always invite you to reach out through the panel's email to give us your full or remaining comments at any time you'd like. Hadassah and I do make sure those get forwarded to the rest of the panel. Panelists, you're welcome to offer a short response at the end of someone's comment. I will pause and invite the opportunity. If you'd like, you can also just shoot me a chat to say you'd like to give a brief comment. We do want to keep those pretty short. We want to make sure this is the public's time to give their feedback to us, but we do recognize sometimes a question comes up that we do just want to answer right on the spot. So with that, I'm going to share. Today's timer is brought to you by Google. I need to pull up participants list. And so Corey, if you could unmute Ariel Amaru first. Ariel, you can speak. Would you like to give public comment tonight?
I would, thank you. I first and foremost, I can't say that watching this has made me miss the panel right now, but it does give me enormous amount of respect for all of you and getting to see your personalities and how you are working through hard issues. I also just want to say as a former panelist that I really acknowledge Soledad's skepticism versus former panelists and maybe overly credence being provided to us, and that you guys need to make this your own. And I am fully in support of setting aside time personally to disband, because I think you need to create a situation where this city ignoring panelists' demands is more costly than responding to them. But I mostly want to use this time to express my deep frustration with the city in a way that I was not able to as a panelist. More work requires more resources. Tonight, Farah, as a paid consultant, not coming with a formal proposal for a working group for these panelists was a disservice to them. It created more work for them without providing any structure. Flo, I sat in on the co-chairs meeting. I don't have the exact quote, but something that you stated was that this work is a privilege and it's a strong ordinance, and to think about other communities who don't get to do this work. There's absolutely nothing privileged about this current process in Boulder, and I'd expect more from you with your years and experience. When is this city going to stop requesting that people from backgrounds most impacted by police misconduct do more work with no additional incentives? Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Next up on our list, sorry, panelists, is there anyone like to give follow-up with that? Awesome. Okay, thank you. Corey, next up, we have Amber Elise Carlson. Could you unmute her? Amber, you are unmuted. Would you like to give comments this evening?
No, sorry, I'm with the daily camera, but I just had asked a question earlier, and actually it was already answered, so we're all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Next up, Corey, could you unmute Annette James? Annette, you're unmuted. Would you like to give comment this evening? Annette, if you're talking, Annette, we can't hear you. You may need to unmute on your side as well, but Annette, would you like to give comment this evening?
I would.
Thank you.
Very minimal. Just want to say good evening and thanks. But I think that all the information is already available, right? There is nothing else that needs to be hashed out. And I agree with Ariel. The decision is either this is a panel who wants to have the ability to affect change by being able to offer meaningful policy and procedural recommendations. And that's the whole idea. And if as soon as anyone says anything negative or perceived as a negative about police, you're in jeopardy of being removed, that is absolutely a toothless, worthless panel. And I don't understand why that's not immediately obvious. And I also don't understand why you have to get permission from council to decide if you're going to pause. If they decide this is not something they want, then they decide. And then I think people have to be willing, where's the integrity? You have to be willing to make a stand. And this is the moment. And to work on putting together an ordinance or revised codes where it's clear, because obviously you can't leave any room in ordinances in Boulder and think that goodwill will come from them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annette. Next up, I think, let's see, we have Dan Williams. Corey, could you unmute Dan? Dan, you're unmuted. Would you like to give comment this evening?
Yes, I would. So first of all, I want to say this was the first POP meeting I've observed, and I was incredibly impressed with the work you're doing and the dedication you're all putting into doing the work. You know, I've been counsel for Lisa Sweeney Moran and got to see up close and personal the process at City Council and got to see the voices from El Centro Amistad and from the NAACP, and got to see how council members really gave them a, you know, as the Denver Post put it, just a slap in the face. And that's not acceptable to me as a member of this community. And I'm really impressed that tonight you're considering standing up to council and saying that's not okay with you either, that it undermines and fundamentally erodes the credibility of the important work that you're doing to allow that to stand. And the lever that you have before you of essentially going on strike, keeping your seats on the POP, but refusing to continue to do work on active cases, I think is the right one and the appropriate one. And I think sends the right message that police oversight panel members may not be intimidated in the way council has done by removing one of your own in the way that they did. So I really hope you take advantage of that proposal and you do suspend your work. I also agree that Ms. Poe's suggestion that you should ask council for permission to essentially engage in a protest against an action of council. I just think that's a misguided approach and just eliminates your power. So I would encourage you to tonight take the vote, do the right thing, and suspend your work until an ordinance is passed that both the NAACP and El Centro approve.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, oh, sorry, the list changed. Next up, we have Chelsea Castellano. Corey, can you unmute Chelsea? Chelsea, would you like to give comment this evening? Ooh. Corey, did Chelsea mute herself?
She's unmuted.
Oh, she's unmuted. Chelsea, would you like to give comment? We can't, if you are talking, Chelsea, we can't hear you. You may have to unmute on your side.
I think she's having mic issues. It unmuted, muted, and now her mic is gone. Oh.
Wait.
Can you hear me now?
We
Or-
can hear you now. Thank
No,
you.
I don't know why this is. Oh, you can. Okay, great. Hi. I was not planning on speaking, but I'm happy to weigh in. I am Chelsea Castellano. I have been an activist in the community for the last few years. I ran the Bedrooms Are for People campaign to reform Boulder's exclusionary housing laws, and the People for Voter Turnout campaign to move our off-cycle elections to even years to increase representation of young people and communities of color who are underrepresented currently in our off-cycle elections, and worked on city council candidates. And I say all of this because I've been involved in the political world of Boulder, and I have worked with the people who, or not with them, but I've seen what the people who have worked to expel Lisa from this panel do. And I promise you that she is not the last person who will receive a complaint. They will keep coming for you because they fundamentally disagree with the work of police oversight. And so I urge you to take this moment. This is a moment in time where you have the power, you have the microphone, and if you do not take it now, it will not have the impact that it could have in the future. And for a short period of time where you can pause, take a stance, and also make sure that the ordinance is right and reflects the needs of the POP, it will save you in the long term, because more complaints are going to come. And at that time, it'll be a scramble. It'll be hard to address. And
20
at
seconds.
some point, the work will stop. And you have the opportunity now to do it in your control and to share your message on why it matters and why you believe that it's the right thing to do. So thank you. I'm with you here in solidarity.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. So we did Amber, Annette, Ariel, Chelsea, Dan. I think next is Hope. Hope, would you like to give a comment this evening?
Yeah, thank you. So I've been living in Boulder on and off for the past 12 years. And I was very unaware of what this committee does for a really long time. I just know that I have a very, very intense distrust of policing, especially in Boulder. And all I want to say is what the city council members did really reminded me of what happened in Tennessee with the Tennessee 3, and then what happened with Zoe Zephyr in the Montana legislature. It seems super, super undemocratic and a big harm to marginalized voices in Boulder. And I've just been doing research all day, seeing what I could do, trying to figure out like what I could say. Please don't ask them for permission if they are fundamentally against having criticism of the police or understanding why marginalized people are so afraid of our current policing system. Then anyone who says anything negatively is at risk. And I think if suspending the work and making it a better, safer place for marginalized people, I think that's what you should do. Because as I think a lot of the other people are saying, you can't really ask permission. You just got to take it and fight for what's right. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Hope. Oh, John, I believe John Gifford is next. Corey, if you can unmute John. John, would you like to give comment this evening?
Sorry, can you hear me? I wasn't actually going to, but
We can
thank
hear
you.
now. Yes, John.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't actually, I was just watching.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Thank you.
Next up, Corey, then will be John Herrick. John, would you like to give comment this evening?
No, thanks. Just tuning in. I'm a journalist with Boulder Reporting Lab. Thanks.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you for being here this evening. Next up is, let's see, Kristen Eller, I believe. Corey, can you unmute Kristen?
She does not want to give comment tonight. She put the Q&A.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristen. Next then is Lisa Spalding. Lisa, would you like to give comment?
No, I would just say one thing. It would be really good if everyone could stop being so angry at each other and start working together, because you're doing really important work and you could have so much support and you need the support. So please don't be so tied to ideology that you can't understand anyone else in the city and try and convince them, work with them, do whatever you need, because it is really important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa. Next up, Corey, is Lisa Sweeney Moran. Lisa, would you like to speak?
Yeah, hi. Gosh, it is great to see you all, and it is great to hear you all and to feel your strength in your work as you navigate this. It has been an emotional night for me, and I know for you as well. Even though I'm not part of your decision-making structure anymore, I'm still always part of the community that supports you, whatever path you head down here. And I also have to say, as a now outside observer of what you're doing, whatever you decide to do, you don't need to ask permission. You don't need to ask permission from city council or the city attorney or anyone else. Hearing you all being threatened tonight with removal if you strike was beyond belief. You don't have to stand for that, and you shouldn't. I know that you all stand together. I know that you stand strong. I know you stand for change and for our community, but you should not have to stand for that. So keep up the good work and know that no matter what you do, we are all here as a community with you, and we are all here supporting you.
Thanks, Lisa. So Lisa, and then next up, I think we have Martha Wilson. Corey, if you can mute Martha. Hey, Martha, would you like to give comment this evening?
Hi, yes. I didn't necessarily prepare anything, but I've definitely been watching and kind of settling this. I don't even know what to call it, actually. But I just wanted to say that people strike all the time for unsafe working conditions. And that's what this feels like. You guys aren't safe, the community's not safe, games are being played, people are playing hokey pokey with appointments. It's all a distraction technique from the work, but it's also an opportunity to say no more. We're not gonna stand for it. We're gonna stand up, stand together. And at this point, you know, there's a small list of items that need to be done in prioritizing the ordinance. But I think just so everybody remembers why it's so important, I want to play a little bit of a song that I was thinking of as I've been listening tonight.
Martha, we can't actually hear the song. I think Zoom may be cutting it out.
Oh, sadness.
Little black boys and girls are scared. Their parents feel so unprepared. The world sees black.
You really hear nothing?
We can hear it now. Thank you.
So little black boys and girls don't cry. We'll find an alibi so you can go outside and never die. We'll try.
Martha, that is your time. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for your comment. Next up, oh, sorry, Darren, I think I accidentally skipped over you with your hand. So next up, Darren O'Connor. Darren, would you like to give comment this evening?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I just want to say that you guys have been advised by attorneys for the city to your detriment. since the very beginning. My understanding is that tonight you've been told all the things that could go wrong by the city attorney. The city attorney's office represents the police. Their job by Boulder Revised Code is to handle cases, for example, that come in from the police, that come against the police, and defend the city. Above, they have more discretion in the city attorney's office to address police brutality, for example, than any single city council member. And the fact that they're potentially threatening you folks on this panel with things that could happen to you for, standing up for the very actions that you need to take to be safe yourself is just an example of why I think that you guys need independent counsel as part of the Boulder Revised Code on the police oversight panel. And you all absolutely need to get independent counsel. I say that as an attorney, not giving you, legal advice, but you need legal advice from someone who is not beholden to the police. That's my major statement for you all, is that you're not getting good
20
advice.
seconds.
Yeah, you're not getting good advice and you need independent counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Chelsea, Hope, John, Herrick, Lisa, Martha. Next up, I think was Shelley Bobbins. Shelley, would you like to give public comment this evening?
Hi, I wasn't planning to give comment, but I do want to say I was very impressed with everyone on this panel in all the thoughtfulness and the educated responses. And I feel bad for a lot of the burdens that have been placed on you and the position you've been placed in. And I just was very impressed by this panel. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up, we have Steve Lennon. Steve, would you like to give comment this evening? Steve, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You may need to unmute on your side, but would you like to give comment this evening? One more, Steve, just checking in, Steve, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Would you like to give comment though this evening? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Steve. We will move on to the next person then. Next up is Trisha Holland. Trisha, you're unmuted. Would you like to give comment this evening?
Hi, no comment from me tonight, but thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Trisha, and thank you for being here. And let me double check. I did get everyone. Amber, Ned, Great, I think that's everyone. Okay. Thank you, members of the public. Thank you, panelists. That concludes public comment for this evening. And so, oops, sorry, I lost my screen. And so, yes, maybe to get this moving, I'll propose a full motion for us to discuss, which is for the panel to vote to suspend any new selection or review of new cases. I'd like to suggest we go ahead and complete the reviews we've already committed to. So we have some in the pipe. So I'm just introducing this as a motion for us to discuss. So we would complete the reviews that we've committed to, but we would not consider or review any new cases, and that we would call a vote to end this pause once the new ordinance has been proposed to city council. So this is me just trying to put some language to what I'm hearing, and for us to start to discuss concrete details of what that looks like. Hadassah, yeah.
Yes, I am with you. The only, I guess, clarifying question I would have, and this might be, I don't know who this question is for, but so the cases that come in that we're saying, you know, like for example, the ones we would be voting on tonight, if we chose to pause motion, do we have the timeline to when we resume activities to pick those up, or would those just be lost during that time? I guess is my question. And I think it's more about like arbitration or how that goes. Sorry, Flo, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I believe that if those cases would most likely, if you follow Farrah's timeline, they would most likely be closed, but they would be overseen and deemed complete and thorough by the monitor. And the monitor has independent authority to make recommendations on dispositions and discipline to the police. It would be like, my understanding is that when Joey Lapari was hired as monitor, he performed the work of the monitor until the panel, and continued that work, but the process changed a little when the panel came into being and started to review cases. But it would sort of revert to just the monitor providing oversight during the time that the panel took its pause.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Flo.
Thanks, Flo and Hadassah. I was going to mention too, additionally, that we would suspend committee work as part of the motion too. So committee work and new cases would be suspended until, and we would take a vote when we have sent a new ordinance to council for approval. Comments, questions? Jason from the dark.
Sorry about that. My laptop battery is dying. Anyway, is there a reason why we can't continue to do our work and just like maybe come up with a statement and issue it?
Yeah, so I'll answer that direct. So I laugh because this has been quite the evolution. So the idea of a statement is something that this panel has gone through several iterations of. And so the thing is, if we wanted to come up with a statement, we would either need to assign it to two panelists to create that statement, or we would create that statement in a public meeting wherein the creation of the statement is the statement. And so it's hard to create an official statement because we can be quoted through the whole process, or we're not all fully represented. And so that's not to squash what you're saying. It's this perennial challenge we've had of, you know, in the past we say, well, we want to just release a statement about a particular issue, and recognizing that, you know, under OML, we have to craft that statement in a public meeting. And so this, in a way, this is our statement. These meetings are opportunities to say what we need to say. So with that answer to your question, actually, I'll hand it back to you, Jason, in case you have more. Yeah.
I do have a little bit more, and you know, this is not to say that I have all the answers or any answer, but for a long time, and I think this started when I was in my civil procedure class almost 30 years ago, and my professor was a person who went down to the South to help the voting rights during the civil rights era, and he was going to federal judges in the South to enforce certain rules. And what he was trying to impart to us was that if you don't know the process, you're never going to get to the substance. because they'll shut you down on process in court. And it's a great thing for a civil procedure teacher to talk about. But what I really came to understand over time is that the people in power use process to stay in power. And the people with no power have to argue about substance to get anywhere. And the reason why I raise this is that everything that we're talking about is process. We're not talking about any substance. We're fighting we're battling them on their playground. Let's do our substance. Let's show them what we can do. Let's do the thing that we were asked to do. I think that is the way that we win. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, Sam and then Hadassah.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jason. I just want to say I agree with Daniel's motion. I think that as stated, right, like we're not asking the city council for permission. We're just gonna stop and let the chips fall where they may. Under that interpretation, I support the motion as you just said. I think this doesn't need to mean that we just sit on our hands, right? The work of racial justice in Boulder continues, and we have a fixed budget of time that we can now use on something else. And so for anyone interested, I'm happy to have like a semi-regular meeting with, and we could do something like a reading group around the, this might sound dry, but around the city code and around the police general orders as well. Because I think that that's something that we're really under schooled in, and that comes up again and again as something that is sort of a key advantage that we that the city and police department have against us, which is they know the rules better than we do and can always just pull cards out of their sleeves. And it's been my intention this whole time to sort of stay up on that, but there's hundreds and hundreds of pages, and this is a good time to do some reading. So if anyone feels guilty about not wanting, about pausing the work, like Jason, I'm happy to get in touch, and we could read papers about how to do oversight well, and other kinds of things that will strengthen us in the long run.
Thanks, Sam. Hadassah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think the only amendment that I would have to your proposal, Daniel, is to not suspend committee work, because I do know that FARA had planned on using the Community Engagement Committee to connect with community for ordinance work. So I think that we should not necessarily include that in there and leave that up to the individual committees to decide, what and how they're going to continue during the moratorium.
What you're saying, yeah. And so just saying it back to make sure I understand and put it in motion form, that we would suspend new case reviews, or suspend consideration of new case reviews, finish reviewing cases we've already committed to. 3, allow committees to decide how they move forward in the moratorium. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we would have a vote. Once the ordinance has gone to council, we would call for a vote to end the moratorium.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Hadassah. So motion amended. Chico? Yeah. Hadassah, was that a second for that motion then?
Yeah, I don't know. Do I need to say new motion if I make changes, or?
I just made the new motion.
Okay, perfect. Yes, then second.
Okay, thank you. So we're at a second point, but we will finish out conversation. Chico?
So Daniel, I'm more or less stuck between a rock and a hard place with where we are going, because say we want to proceed with, on one side, with certain aspects of our work, like community work. Then on the other hand, we say we're going to suspend case reviews. But what about the people that are expecting some form of resolution who have complained? So are we taking their positions or feelings into consideration? Because on one side you want to do something, on the other side you want to stop something. So it's like we want to have our cake and eat it too.
Thank you, Chico. Sam?
So one solution I heard from a community member is we could continue to meet and invite the public who have complaints about the police to come and share their complaints publicly, right? Instead of anonymously through the city website. That way there's still a channel for them to air their grievances. It wouldn't be formally handled by the monitor's office, but this would be a part of the process for rebuilding trust.
Actually, Sam, we can't suspend the complaint process. So that is a process that goes through the monitor's side of the ordinance. And so we don't
right
to that. Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that we suspend that. I'm saying that we can just have longer public comments where we invite people who have to share their interactions with the police in public.
And thank you, Sam. And yeah, and just as a quick reminder, and to what Flo had said too, is that the monitor side of business would continue. And so complaints would, we do not have the authority to stop complaints from being submitted to the monitor's office or the police department. And then those would still continue through the ordinance's legal processes of sending those complaints for classification to the monitor's office, and then investigation by the PSU and the monitor's office. And then the monitor still withholds the right to make disciplinary recommendations to the chief of police. And so, you know, our three-legged stool of oversight, we have the authority over the one leg, which is our review of cases before the ultimate disciplinary decision is made. Yeah, Victor, I see your hand.
I would like to hear Flo's opinion of moving forward or not moving forward with suspending the work. Just from her perspective of just the independent monitor and what that does to her side.
I think this is a political decision that is not mine to make. And I'm not familiar enough with the Boulder community to, I mean, it's just not the monitor's place to opine. I can tell you, as all I can do is reiterate what I've already said, which is what the role of the monitor would be going forward after the panel's exhausted the pool of cases it's already agreed to review.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Flo. Milan, I see your hand.
Yeah, I mean, hearing what Chico said, but I don't think there should be a partial strike. I mean, what's that about? I personally think that it should be a full-on strike, and I understand it's inconvenient for some people, and it has, you know, some people won't like it, but I think that if we want to make a strong statement, let's make a strong statement, and that means stopping everything.
So Milan, sorry, so saying it back to you, are you saying then to suspend all committee activity as in addition to the new case reviews? Just double checking.
Yeah.
Thank you, Milan. Yeah, Flo, I see the hand.
Sorry, just to clarify, the committee work is needed to do some of the ordinance work. We can't have ordinance progress happen without committee work happening. That's the only reason we need to keep the selection committee or the
governance
committee? The community engagement committee specifically. Yeah.
So is that maybe to suspend committee work that is not work on the ordinance? Is that maybe the compromise there? Does that make sense to y'all?
I would motion that we stop everything except working on the ordinance in whatever, you know, committee that is needed. Does that make sense? I'm not sure how to make a motion, but.
Yeah. Let me chew on wordage and I'll come back after Flo if that, okay.
I just want to say one thing in response to Milan's comment, or I'm not sure exactly what the proposed new motion would be, but in the cases that the panel has already voted on, those members of the community have already been advised through the monitor that the panel is going to review their case. That's because every time you make a vote to review a case, the monitor sends out a letter apprising the community member that the panel is going to review their case and what the role of the monitor and the panel are.
Thank you, Flo. Yeah, Milan, is that a new hand?
Yeah, I think we did agree that we would work on the cases that are still pending, right?
Yeah, so I think where we're at, if I can pull this together, we will review cases that we've committed to reviewing. We will not consider, we will pause consideration of new cases to review, and we will suspend all other panel work that is not in relation to the ordinance. Does that make sense?
I would second that.
In relation to revising the ordinance. Okay. That's where we stand right now. Maybe before we get a second on that, just give everyone a chance to chew on that and raise a hand if they have questions or comments. So the motion is this panel would suspend consideration of new cases to review. We'll suspend all other panel work that is not related to revising the ordinance. And the only exception is we would go ahead with reviewing the cases we've already committed to reviewing.
And then Daniel, that just so that I'm totally clear, that said, cases where it's already been communicated to the community that action is underway on their case. That's the exception. Those we'll go through with those only. Okay, got it. Because the one thing we don't want to lose is the trust of the community.
We don't want to back off our word. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? Panelists, I want to open it too if we'd like to invite Aaron or Flo or Farah in for feedback, or Sterling as well. If just opening that door too, if we want to call anyone else into this space before we take a final vote on that as well. I want to open that up to y'all. But Soledad, I do see your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
we have been going on for so long. I'm losing my capacity of thinking, and I need to be at commencement tomorrow, 7:30. But can we? I mean, I don't know what the options are. I don't know if we're trapped at some point. If we can try maybe a vote right now, but I don't think we can keep going longer. Like, it's been super long.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're here. Farah and Flora are somewhere else, so I know time change can be a challenge.
Yes. So panelists, the motion, I'll go ahead and call for a second on this. We will suspend considering new cases for review. We will suspend all other panel work that is not related to making changes to the ordinance. The only exception is we will follow through with reviewing cases that we've committed to reviewing at past meetings. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Just 2 seconds. 2 to the power of 2, that's 4 seconds. In that case, Panelists by a show of hands, all in favor of the motion. I'll reflect at this time that Sarah Holt asked me to vote for her by proxy to vote for suspension. Corey, let us know once you've got all our hands.
You're good.
Thanks, Corey. And then I'll call for, once I see everyone's hands goes down. Thank you. Any panelists against the motion? Show of hands. Thank you, Jason. And acknowledging for the moment too, Jason, that the minority voice has always been important to this panel. And I just want to thank you for that. Okay, in that case, and to the point of time, that means with that passed, I do not believe we will take up committee reports unless committee chairs, if you have anything in relation to the ordinance, I would suggest that we go ahead and just do those updates over email. And that also means we will not move ahead with the selection of cases for review. Sorry, checking comments as well on the side here. Panelists, any final comments or commentary?
So just a clarifying point, our committee meetings will be still left on the calendar for us to discuss ordinance updates. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, let's in that case, of course, that's the prerogative of the chairs now. Of course, we don't have a chair for governance, do we? So yes, I think we can go ahead and leave committee meetings on the calendar. So if there's ordinance work to be done in them, that's available. I think in that case too, unless anyone disagrees, I think we should go ahead and keep the co-chairs regular meetings with the city also on the calendar so that we can continue to schedule these general meetings and so that we can continue to facilitate the ordinance work as well. So I don't think we should change meeting schedules at this time, just so we leave those windows open for the ordinance work. And acknowledging, as Farah said, is getting the group together to talk about the ordinance is going to be particularly challenging since those need to be public meetings. So keeping those slots, I think, will help the ordinance work move quicker if they're in place. Yeah.
Daniel, if you don't mind, what was the count?
Sorry, say that again. The count for the vote.
Yes.
Yeah, Corey, can you give us?
It was 8-1.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Sterling, I see the hand.
Yeah, so since you guys have to get, I guess, permission from council to do this pause, do you know when that decision, when you're gonna talk to them about that? And how that'll be communicated to the other panel members, so they know?
So that's the question. So that's the question at the moment. We did not vote to send a request to council. And so I don't know what happens next. Milan, Soledad, we might want to hear from Aaron next on this as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I didn't vote for that. I think it was pretty clear from this panel that that is not the way we're going to go. At least that's my understanding.
Yes, Soledad.
About the same thing. If we're going with this, I'm not asking for permission.
You don't ask permission not to volunteer. Yeah. Panel, would you like to hear from Erin? She's here for us if we want to hear from her.
Yes, she's just doing her job, reading the book. It's not a personal attack. So please.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is a unique situation. So council members are aware this was on your agenda. I'm sure they will be checking in to see what happened. And we'll see what direction they want to take. So I imagine that they'll have some sort of discussion about it to try to wrap their heads around it and figure out what, if anything, they do next.
Thanks, Erin. Panelists, any final thoughts, comments, questions? Yeah, Milan?
I just want to say how much I appreciate this process and every single one of you agreeing and disagreeing. I think it's been really important. And that's probably the first time that I really truly feel a sense of community in this group and get to see you and your full selves in this work. And so I just want to say I'm really proud of all of us together. And I really appreciate everyone here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Milan. Of course, you all, you have mine and Hadassah's phone numbers. Please, you have each other's phone numbers. Reach out. Feel free to talk to each other. We do have our committee meeting scheduled. We have our general meeting coming up. And of course, Hadassah and I will keep you up to date on anything we hear back through city council or through the city, through our connections as the panel's liaisons. But otherwise, thank you. I think this is the longest meeting we've had as a panel. Thank you for sticking to the marathon. I'm not going to take any more of your time. Please have a good night, and we will all talk soon.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Let's see.